This is Atomic Shinobi, and today I'm going to narrate second part of What If Naruto Was Betrayed by Leaf After Pain Attack. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no time, let's start the story.
Once more, Naruto took the lead, and Suzaku accompanied them on their round-trip journey. The fact that he seemed to have an endless supply of cigars and that he smoked one every 5 minutes irritated Akuyuri much. While they were fighting, Naruto was conversing with Kurama, Ketsueki, and Chomei in the back of his mind. In a white void, where only Biju and their jinchuriki could converse, they stood in their Biju forms. With Kurama nodding, Chomei remarked, "This pull, it's getting stronger. I don't know why, but it just feels so familiar, like I've felt it before. The same goes for me, I haven't felt this chakra in ages, yet it feels so familiar." Naruto clutched his chest, the warm, heavy chakra radiating from it, and said, "I've just joined the Biju as one of you and even I feel like I've encountered this chakra before." Ketsueki asked, glancing from one Biju to the other, clearly not understanding what they were talking about. "What chakra is this?" he asked. "We Biju have a very heightened sense of chakra radiating around, and the stream we're feeling is one so similar to us that it feels like we've encountered it before, yet it's one we haven't felt in eons. What's weird is that even Naruto can feel it, and he just became a Biju." Chomei explained to her jinchuriki. Kurama said, a little menacingly, "I'm wondering what if the other Biju and their jinchuriki can feel it? Maybe it's some sort of call." Kumogakure Killer Bee stopped in his tracks and hunched over as he was walking beside his brother along one of the more popular roads in their village. A worriedly asked, "B, are you alright?" fearing for his brother. B was given a hard rap, facepalming. "Whoa, what a rush. Such a large chakra gush," before B got back up. Yuki asked, "B, you felt it as well, am I correct?" And B nodded. B scowled at his brother A and said, "Yuki felt it too bro, and we both feel like this chakra is familiar." "What do you mean? Let me speak to him." B extended his hand and his brother nodded, understanding, then pressed his fist to B's, creating a conduit for Yuki to speak with him. "What B signifies is that we both experienced a surge of chakra and felt as though we had previously experienced this chakra," Yuki clarified, leaving a perplexed. "But what does that mean?" Yuki, who was a little concerned about this, said, "I don't know, but whatever it means, we're gonna find out by tonight." Matabi, the Nibi, felt the same chakra wave at the same moment inside the Kohaku no Johei and was taken aback by it. Could it actually be you, Grandpa?" Sanagakure before an invisible wave of chakra struck Gaara, who was sitting at his desk writing things down on several pieces of paper with his sand. The sand began to tremble and crumble, and Gaara moaned in pain. He attempted to converse with Shukaku once more, feeling it tremble inside of him as well. "Shukaku, can you hear me? Did you feel that as well?" he inquired. There was a brief pause in conversation before the Ichibi's deep, harsh voice could be heard. "Yes, I did. Did you recognize it? You're not one to shiver like that." I did. I haven't felt this chakra in forever. Gaara, tonight, something is going to happen not only with us, but with the others as well." Iwagakure. In the rocky expanse behind Iwagakure, Kakuo and Son Goku, the Gobi and Yanbi, were strolling freely without a jinchuriki when the wave of chakra struck them like a brick, sending Kakuo sliding back a few yards. With wide eyes, he turned to face Son Goku and said, "Please tell me you felt that as well, right?" With a slow nod from the enormous Biju, Son Goku replied, "Yes. You know whose it is, don't you? Then we must retreat into the mountains so we can be at peace when the time comes." As they headed toward the Grabakar Mountains, the highest mountains in the world, a territory inaccessible to humans but not by Bijus, Son Goku said, "Of course." Kirigakure, the same chakra struck the young man who was walking along a path on one of Water Country's smaller islands. He had light yellow hair that was styled like a fin, similar to Kisami's hairstyle, and a kiri headband around his head that covered his ears and extended upward like a triangle, a combination of Kisami's and Kakuzu's headbands. The man also wore a black mask that covered his mouth and was attached to a navy blue hood. "Holy shit. Isobu, you feel that?" he questioned the Sanbi, his Biju, Isobu. The enormous turtle replied, "I did, and it was powerful. I bet Saiken felt it as well. Let us hurry to him." The man then started to run down the path to a sizable cave on the island. They entered and stood in front of a massive white slug with 6 tails, tiny arms, and feet that was staring down at them. The enormous Biju named Saiken, the Rokubi, and the man named Yahiko asked each other, removing his mask to reveal a Glasgow smile and nodding. Yahiko, you felt it as well? Yahiko replied. Yahiko responded, yeah, I did. What do you think of it? Isobu is wondering this as well. The Biju appeared to loosen up a little. Saiken nodded as Yahiko put the mask back on his face after spitting out something black. I don't know, but if my calculations are correct, the other Biju should have felt it as well, including their jinchuriki. We must be vigilant in watching to see if this phenomenon happens again. 6 o'clock right now. Gaara was not having a good day. In order to consider the neutral rather than the hostile, the Suna Council was requesting that he resume relations with Konoha. Gaara, however, would have none of it and insisted that they leave him to deal with Konoha in his own way. However, Gaara had rejected Konoha's Captain Yamato's offer to share information about this yolk cage, in an effort to mend the alliance between their two villages. Alliances were designed for people who could be relied upon to provide support when it was most needed. Right now, Konoha was not a place he could rely on as an ally. Not now that Naruto has left. Gaara, was said in a voice that caused Gaara to scowl just a little bit before he swept his arm around, launching a cloud of sand at the intruder and then being blasted away by a wave of demonic chakra. Chakra that Shukaku and Gaara are all too familiar with. Akuma, uttered Gaara, glancing at the mask that was peeking out from beneath the cloaked figure's veiled straw hat. Gaara's eyes narrowed at the clouds painted in Akatsuki on the cloak and the 2 others who were with him. There were 3 more people standing off to the side. A person with a black wild hair and horned headband, a person with brown hair and yellow eyes, and a person with a red mohawk. Gaara's eyes widened in shock as Naruto removed his straw hat, absorbed his mask as chakra, and grinned. Ah yes, it seems I must do the same thing I did to the Raikage as well. Naruto grinned. Hello my friend. It's been such a long time. Gaara got up from his chair and walked over to greet him. As Tamari and Kankuro stormed through the office doors, Gaara, what's going on? We felt a wave of demonic chakra and she was met with Naruto's icy stare. When Gaara raised a hand to stop Kankuro from using his puppets, he demanded, who are you and what are you doing in our brother's office? It's all right Kankuro, Tamari, leave us, but Gaara. Gaara gave Kankuro the do it or die look, cutting off his protest, and Tamari and Kankuro left the room as if nothing had happened. So, leader of Akatsuki, what brings you here? Inquired Gaara, while Naruto grinned and rearranged his mask in case another person entered the space. As Kurama and Akayuri removed their straw hats and turned to face Gaara, Naruto said, I've come here to ask for your assistance. You may have heard the rumors about Takigakure and Otogakure having been wiped out by an unknown shinobi by the name of the Yukikage, and Kumogakure becoming allies with him. Well, I'm the Yokage. This is Akayuri, the last true bearer of the Rinnegan and my second in command. And this here is Kurama, the Kyuubi in human form. Kurama grinned, sup. Gaara glanced from him to Naruto and back again. Naruto lost the words he was going to say when he partially opened and then closed his mouth after introducing Gaara to the others. Why is it unsealed from you? He finally questioned, while Naruto grinned behind his mask. He looked at Gaara, who was still perplexed, and said, well, we can't have a Biju sealed up inside another Biju now can we? He told his friend about his rigorous training and his transformation into Biju, becoming the second Kyuubi, the 10th Biju, along with the other 9. With their eyes widening, Naruto, Ketsueki, and Kurama asked, wow. Tell me something, was it you that sent out a wave of chakra that Shukaku and I felt? Before turning to look at each other again. Kurama said, crossing his arms, so we weren't the only ones that felt it either. Gaara concurred. Naruto nodded and he asked, you mean that you didn't send out that chakra wave? Naruto turned back to Gaara, who was now wearing a serious expression. Yeah, and if you and Shukaku felt it, then that must mean the other Biju and their jinchuriki, if they have one, felt it as well. With the question hanging ominously over their heads, Ketsueki asked, then if you or the others didn't send it out, who did? To try to break the ice, Kurama said, let's think on it tonight. All this stress is making me tired. Gaara said, of course. You can stay in the tower's extra bedrooms. Then, he picked up his gourd and left his office, trailing Naruto and the others. 11 o'clock. Naruto was awake and unable to sleep due to his thoughts about the strange chakra he had felt, even though everyone else was asleep. When a tiny breeze blew through his room's open window, he realized too late that his eyes had widened. Naruto's unconscious body collapsing against the med with a gentle thump was the only sound audible. Shadows, everything was involved, all around. Just limbo. Naruto. A spotlight, like pillar of light, descended upon him, causing his eyes to snap open. He squinted his eyes and said, "Oi, where am I?" as he rose off the ground, or whatever was beneath his feet. "Kurama?" he inquired. Not a response. "Ketsueki?" he exclaimed, on the verge of yelling, but, as before, there was no response. "Chome?" he questioned one last time. Stillness. He turned to face the darkness once more before moving from the light into the shadows. He moved away from the pillar, his shape vanishing into the never-ending blackness all around him. The only sounds emanating from it were the sound of his footsteps striking the earth. He seemed to be walking indefinitely without being able to see or touch anything. He abruptly noticed a light, a tiny, far the light at the end of the tunnel. "Ketsueki, Chome, and Kurama," exclaimed. "Hey, there's Naruto," as they turned to face the figure emerging from the shadows. Naruto noticed Chome was in her human form as he joined the three of them inside the larger pillar of light. Her light green hair hung down to her waist, held in place by a tiny yellow clip that prevented it from getting in the way of her vision. Her face was perfect, not a flaw in sight, with brown, compassionate eyes and a warm smile. She finished off her look with sandals and tape around her ankles, a white skirt, and a light blue long-sleeve combat shirt. Naruto asked, turning to face the vast darkness once more, "What is this place?" "It's a place where we Biju and our jinchuriki can talk in peace. No one can get into the place, not even that man with the evil eyes you had killed could get here." Naruto spun around to see two men, clearly more Biju, approaching them. The first had a small smile, a gruff frown, green eyes, and shaggy red hair, while the second had a darker shade of red, resembling the garb of a Shaolin monk. The first had long white robes and silver armor resting over them, a shining helmet held under his right arm, and short brown hair with blue eyes. As the Gobi and Yanbi joined them in the Pillar of Light, Kurama grinned and shook hands with both of them. "Kakuo, Son Goku. Been a while, hasn't it?" Kurama asked. When Kakuo and Son Goku saw Naruto and Ketsueki, they went over to greet them. Kakuo then bowed to both of them. Introduced with kindness and respect, Kakuo said, "A pleasure to meet you too. My name is Kakuo, the Gobi." Naruto and Ketsueki returned the favor. The Yanbi proudly declared, "And I am the great sage monkey king, Son Goku," as he shook hands with both Ketsueki and Naruto. Son Goku grinned as Ketsueki said, "My name is Ketsueki Hadorizo, Chome's current jinchuriki. It's an honor to be among you all." With a cunning smirk, Naruto said, "And I'm Naruto Uzumaki, Kurama's former jinchuriki and the newbie around here." Son Goku and Kakuo raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean? I'm the second Kyuubi." Slapping his hand on his knee and bucking with laughter, Son Goku exclaimed, "Oh ho, we got two now? That's Kurama times two?" Kakuo quickly snapped out of his serious, grumpy demeanor and said, "Yeah, sorry for his behavior." A lovely voice called out to Naruto from the shadows, "Must you always act like that, son?" Naruto turned to see a stunning woman with long blue hair, a short white shirt that showed off part of her bust and navel, and black combat pants. She had strange eyes because one was green and the other was yellow. Kurama grinned slightly and said, "Ah, the flaming kitten has arrived." Matabi, the Nibi, laughed as she approached Kurama and stood close to him, pressing her cheek against his arm. Kakuo was standing nearby and heard Naruto ask in a low voice, Why is he acting like that?" Kurama scratched behind Matabi's ear, causing her to giggle once more. "Matabi is, well, the most, how do I put this? Lustful of the Biju," murmured Kakuo, causing Naruto's eyes to widen. "Alrighty then," another voice called out, "Don't let the party start without us, guys." It was that of a man with light blonde hair and a mask who emerged from the shadows accompanied by two other people. One of them was wearing glasses and a white lab coat, while the other was wearing khaki shorts, flip-flops, and a light green t-shirt. As the Rokubi, Seiken, and the Sanbi, Isobu approached them with the third person Naruto did not know. He exclaimed, "You must be Isobu and Saiken." Before Naruto could respond, Ketsueki asked, "And who are you?" The man took off his mask, spit out some black saliva, and then continued. The man smiled and said, "I'm Yahiko, Isobu's jinchuriki." Naruto was reminded of Akatsuki member Kakuzu by Yahiko's Glasgow smile. "What's up with your face? Reminds me of Kakuzu." "Yeah, I know. Like him, I have the Jongu, the earth grudge fear." "Before you ask," Yahiko said, turning around and putting the mask back on his face. He then unzipped his black kiri and flak jacket to show off his bare back, which had 4 different masks sewn into it, each of which represented one of his 4 spare hearts. "Wow," exclaimed Kakuo, feeling a little queasy about the masks, just before Yahiko crossed his arms and snapped the back of the flak jacket to the front, exposing the stitch marks on his wrists. As he walked alongside Killer Bee, Gaara, and Shukaku, the Ichibi, the Hachibi, Gyuki gruffly said, "I guess the gang's all here." In his human form, Gyuki resembled a professional wrestler with his white hair slicked back, scars all over his face, and a muscular upper body covered in tattoos. He wore combat boots instead of sandals, a gold belt around his waist, and navy blue pants with tape around his ankles. With the exception of having his entire face covered in bandages, including his nose, Shukaku had assumed the appearance of a mummified person, resembling the second Tsuchikage Mu. His other physical characteristics included a single eye with a black sclera and a yellow iris surrounded by a black pointed star. As Shukaku approached Kurama, the two glared at one another, their faces inches from one another, and it was obvious to all that they were at odds. Shukaku. Kurama. Kurama bared his fangs and started to growl deep from the back of his throat, while Shukaku balled his fists. To pull the two apart and prevent them from attempting to rip each other's limbs off, it took the combined strength of everyone in the room. "Stop." Everyone froze in place as the chakra passed through them once more, sending shivers down their spines as it passed through and over them. Abruptly, the sound of light footfall coincided with a faint metallic thunk against the ground. Someone was coming over. Everyone tensed as the enigmatic newcomer approached them. He was so familiar, yet none of them knew him. The footsteps came to a stop as everyone felt the presence of someone who was both nearby enough to be felt and far enough away for them to not be able to see. The voice called out to them once more, "Come with me." As it moved away from them, the sounds of metal and footsteps could be heard once more, but they were getting farther and farther away. After giving the others a quick glance, Kurama started to slowly follow the presence, with Naruto and the others following closely behind. For an eternity more, they strolled through the darkness, but eventually it began to get a little brighter and mustier. "Hey, it looks like we're in a cave," Kakuo remarked as Naruto reached back and touched his fingers to corroborate. They were within a cavern. "What is this place?" Gaara inquired as they emerged into a spacious subterranean cave adorned with murals that portrayed the era when the world was still in its infancy. "Hold on, I'm beginning to remember, I've been here before," Son Goku uttered after closely inspecting the space. As they entered the room's center, Isobu said, "Yeah, so do I remember this place in my youth." The murals amazed the jinchuriki in attendance, while Naruto peered at the lone mural set into the wall behind a raised platform with a view of the entire room. The mural featured a purple eye with a ripple-like pattern. It was probably the Rinnegan, with the symbol for yin and yang representing its pupil. Kurama chuckled as his gaze shifted from the eye to something beneath it, and the previously used chakra reappeared. When Saiken saw it too, he exclaimed, "Well, I'll be damned." The others soon followed. A fresh set of eyes was standing on the platform, staring down at them. Kurama grinned, "You sneaky bastard. How's it going, old man?" As Naruto's eyes grew wide with surprise and admiration. There was a figure standing at the edge of the platform, his features lost in the room's shadows, but there were two things that were clearly visible. He held a shakuho, a staff with a sharpened tip used by priests in religious ceremonies, in his left hand. He had the most noticeable eyes. Of the 3 great dojutsus, they were the most revered and godlike. The Samsara Eye, the Rinnegan. This man was none other than Hagoromo Otsutsuki, the legendary and mythical sage of 6 paths, the god of shinobi, and the savior of this world. Hagoromo stared at Yuki, asking, "How are you still alive?" The man looked at Naruto and said, "I'm not really alive, I'm speaking to you all through my chakra. I've taken a small amount of chakra from each and every one of you so we could speak like this. Hagoromo crossed his arms and squinted his eyes. So, you're Naruto Uzumaki, Kurama's former jinchuriki? He asked. How do you know who I am? Naruto inquired. The sage laughed and jumped down from his perch, causing the torches in the cave to all light up at once to reveal his identity. His necklace, which was adorned with 6 red magatama, was visible through his high-collared, solid white haori. The rinnegan with 9 magatama arranged in 3 rows was reflected in a seal on the back of his haori. Due to aging, he had some wrinkles on his face. His hair was the same color, white, and had 2 tufts that pointed outward to resemble horns. He also had a short, neat goatee. I've been watching you for quite some time. Ever since you and Kurama merged your chakras together, the little bit of my chakra I had sealed within Kurama split, some of it staying with him while the other half transferred to you when you became a Biju, said Hagoromo with eyes that were narrowed. He questioned, clenching his fist and hissing at the mention of Konohagakure. You have a lot of anger inside of you. Most of it directed towards your village of Konohagakure. Why is that? Naruto said. Hagoromo sighed in response to his growl, that place is dead to me. I asked, why? That's not the answer I wanted, he repeated, emphasizing the question mark. Unable to think of anything to say, Naruto opened his mouth to speak but quickly shut it again. Hagoromo nodded as he said, I can't really explain it through words, it's too painful. He approached Naruto, lifted his right hand, placed it atop Naruto's head, and then shut his eyes. Hagoromo calmly said, close your eyes, and let your memories flow like running water. Naruto calmed down, relaxed his muscles, closed his eyes, and took a deep breath. From the moment of his birth, Hagoromo witnessed his entire life flash before him in the form of memories. He saw his mother and father willingly give their lives to shield him from ridicule and treatment as an outsider and someone who was treated like a something, rather than a someone, throughout his entire life. This continued for the 19 years he had lived in the village. He even saw the fight and conversation between him and Nagato, as well as how, despite saving the villagers, he was still compelled to leave because he was seen as a threat rather than a hero. He witnessed everything. With a calm expression, he opened his eyes and lowered his hand to look at the young man in front of him. Naruto opened his eyes and turned to face the sage. Naruto, what you have gone through is probably the most pain I have ever seen in my entire life. Not even the countless wars I have seen could match the pain you have felt. I understand your hatred and your drive towards peace, the sage remarked. Now that this has been taken care of, I must tell you why I have brought you all here. My eldest son, the ancestor of your so-called Uchiha clan, has returned to this world through his chakra and has manifested into the body of someone you all have either met or known. He had fought his brother, my youngest son, the ancestor of the Senju and essentially your clan, the Uzumaki clan, as well, and developed a deep hatred for him. His direct descendant, Madara Uchiha, carried his same goal by bringing peace to the world through the use of ultimate genjutsu, the unlimited Tsukuyomi, and has returned to accomplish that goal. How he plans to do it is by capturing each of you and using your power for it. I fear that he will act soon, so you all must be prepared. When the time comes, someone among you shall rise up and lead you in the fight against him to try and stop him. When that time comes, use the chakra I embedded into you to summon me, so I can permanently seal his chakra and soul away, to where he can never be a threat to anyone ever again, said Hagoromo, his ominous words striking everyone like a stab to the heart. Matabi stammered, my god. An ultimate genjutsu, and Naruto felt the same way. Hagoromo held out his left hand to Naruto and gave him his shakuho. Naruto, when I looked inside your memories, I detected the same feelings from both of my sons, my eldest son's hatred and my younger son's love. So here, take this, he said. After giving the staff a minute's worth of attention, Naruto carefully took it from him, feeling its weight as he swung it around a few times. Hagoromo said, listen, Naruto, as his chakra started to wane and his form started to change. As Hagoromo spoke in the form of a prophecy, Naruto's gesture tightened at the words, there will come a time in the near future where you will come to the crossroads of the biggest decision in your life. When that time comes, you must either choose between your love or your hatred. As the cave started to disappear and the surroundings turned dark once more, Hagoromo said, I wish you all the best of luck. Farewell. The real world. With a start, Naruto opened his eyes and realized he was back in his own room in the Cage Tower in Suna. He exhaled deeply and dabbed at the perspiration on his forehead. He asked himself, select between my love or my hatred, as he turned back to the bed and dozed off, the question gnawing at the back of his mind. After 3 days, a knock on Tsunade's door occurred while she was seated at her desk. Expecting to see Yamato, she said, "Come in," but instead, she received the opposite response. Danzo entered through the open door, placing his cane down in front of his desk and facing Tsunade. "Danzo, what do you want?" Tsunade asked, her eyes narrowing. "It's just a simple matter really," Danzo began, just before 2 men with distinctive animal masks, arm and leg guards, red and black shoulder guards with hoods, and 6 buttons arranged in 2 columns on the chest, entered the room. Tsunade's eyes narrowed only at the white armband on their right shoulder, which featured the emblem of the now defunct Anbu faction route. The attire worn by Aemon in the Legend of Korra. Danzo declared, "Tsunade Senju, you are hereby expunged from the position of Hokage," as the 2 root members advanced in her direction. Demanding, "What is the meaning of this?" Tsunade leapt from her chair. "I will be that firm hand to lead the village back to its former glory. It needs a firmer hand to lead it under leadership has grown weak," Danzo declared as 2 more root members suddenly materialized behind Tsunade. One of them quickly applied a chakra, absorbing seal to her back, sucking up 3/4 of her chakra and leaving her with barely enough energy to stay awake and move. At the sudden drain of chakra, she fell to the ground and tried to stand up just in time to be handcuffed. Had the seal not removed it, she could have easily broken them. Her monstrous strength was gone. Tsunade yelled, "Damn it Danzo, you'll pay for this," as one of the root members firmly planted his foot on her back and pinned her to the ground. With a sly smile, Danzo gazed down at her as though he was the world's ruler, which, for the moment, he was. "Oh really?" he exclaimed as he moved aside and 2 additional root members, Homura and Kaharu, appears with a bound Yamato. Yamato cried out, "Danzo, what the hell do you think you are doing?" as he was hurled to the ground and grunted as he collided with the 2 senior council members. Homura exclaimed, "This is an outrage. Release us at once." Danzo laughed briefly before turning back to the root members and becoming serious once more. Danzo and the lone remaining member of Root were left in the empty office when the man gave the order, "Take them away and put them with the others." The 4 of them were picked up roughly and dragged out of the room. "Go with them to assure they will not escape." Before leaving the office, the man wearing the scarab mask bowed and said, "As you wish, Lord Danzo." As this was going on, Tsunade, Yamato, Homura, and Kaharu were brought to a carriage with windows barred and plated in steel. When the door opened, they were hurled into the carriage with a few others who were already inside, burlap sacks thrown over their heads to block their vision. "Who's there?" To her surprise and relief, Tsunade stammered, "Guy. Is that you?" "It's me, Tsunade. I'm with Yamato, Kaharu, and Homura." At the sound of the Jonin's voice. "Damn, they nabbed you too. Bastards really know how to kidnap," said Guy. Tsunade, attempting to conjure up a mental picture of her surroundings, said, "Yeah, that damn bastard Danzo was the one that got us. Who else is in here? I think beside me is Inoichi, Ibiki, Kurenai and once the 4th Hokage's bodyguard, the Senbon." Chewing Jonin answered in an easygoing manner, "Genma." Guy answered, forgetting his name, "Right." A more recent voice, one that was further away than the others, asked, "Tsunade, are you there?" "Shikamaru. Where are you?" "Choji, Ino, and the other newbies are in this carriage with us. It's in front of yours." Ino. To the other carriage, Inoichi, the leader of the Yamanaka clan, spoke. His daughter Ino's voice said, "I'm all right, Dad. Could you please explain to me what the devil is going on?" inquired Shikamaru, to which Kaharu responded. She spoke calmly but with a hint of annoyance. "Danzo has pulled a silent coup d'etat and has removed us from our positions, Shikamaru Nara." "So why did he lock us up in particular?" asked Choji. Ibiki sighed and clicked his teeth together, muttering under his breath. "To eliminate his opponents," he remarked bitterly. "It sounds like he's been planning this for a while with that broken uproot faction of his." "So, where are we heading?" questioned Homura just before the noise of several footsteps and a door opening could be heard. The Scarab Mask Root member suddenly materialized at the barred window, peering inside the carriage. Okay, we're going to leave right now. It will be a while before you are seen. Shizaki. So you spent the whole time with Root? Tsunade growled, and Bu Commander Shizaki Oru. A reference to Chapter 1. Softly laughing. To think that I could trust you, Tsunade said. Keha. I apologize, Princess, but your little helper will manage without you. Shizune. What have you done to her? Tsunade angrily yelled at the once ally turned enemy. Don't worry though, she'll disappear soon enough, he said, gesturing for the other Root members to move on. He then got off the carriage and walked back a few feet, watching as the carriages left the large, dimly lit warehouse. After they were out of sight, he waited until they were out of sight before pressing his finger to the comm in his ear and said softly, You two ready? This could get very dangerous, so heed my warning now. We're all right. A certain pink-haired kunoichi spoke in a feminine voice, We're already at the gate waiting for you. Excellent. I'll be over there soon. Another voice, that of Sasuke, the final Uchiha, said, Don't keep us waiting or we might just leave without you. Number 2 prison carriage. After traveling for hours on end, Inochi finally said, Is there anyone who knows where we are going? With a glance in his direction, Yamato uttered, I am certain of our destination. Situated on the boundary between Wind Country and Fire Country, it's a small outpost facility. Although merchants and traders do pass through it, Anbu has disguising it as a straightforward trade post. However, it is actually one of the most horrifying and brutal torture prisons operated on behalf of Konoha. Because of its notorious past, it is also known as the Shi Facility, the Death Facility, to be precise. It is actually there that all of the criminals and POWs who are never seen by anyone again are. It was supposed to be closed down and the data classified, but it appears that Root has regained control of it. What then should we do? Inoichi inquired, and Yamato sighed. All we can do is wait. I'm hoping Kakashi will return and save us because he hasn't been seen in a while. I think he realized what Danzo was up to and left early. Do we have to wait for Kakashi then? Questioned Tsunade, and Ibiki laughed. Or the yoke cage? He smirked and said, I apologize for mishearing. Did you say to wait for a myth? Inoichi questioned, perplexed by Ibiki's declaration. It's unlikely, but consider the possibility. Even though he's just a rumor, he will undoubtedly target Konoha if he continues to subjugate the other villages. Hear this. Danzo recently sent its Hokage and a number of its most renowned and formidable shinobi to prison. Ibiki clarified, he might try to kill us, and in the ensuing chaos and confusion, we slip away to try and topple Danzo off his little pillar. On the other hand, Yamato still had a trick up his sleeve. Literally, he pulled out a small chip and pressed the small black button, sending a signal to the one person he knew would receive it. Well, we better figure out how to escape quickly because time is running out, Yamato said. A Megacure's Pain's Tower. As Kakashi finished his rounds, searching the tower for intruders, he felt a faint hum coming from his chest. Unzipping his cloak, he reached out with his right arm to retrieve a pouch on his flak jacket. His eyes hardening at the flashing red light, he slipped out a small chip, crushed it, and slipped his arm back into his cloak, buttoning it up as he ran to the top floor, sending his chakra into the wall to open it, entering the pod room and racing towards the office. As he walked in, Konan turned, raising an eyebrow slightly and asking Kakashi what was wrong. A former friend of mine from Konoha called me in distress. I want to go assist him. And why ought I to consent to this? Questioned Konan. Due to 2 factors. 1. We can take advantage of their trust and surprise them by showing up as if I had never gone rogue and saving him. Secondly, any information I find, I will give it straight to Naruto, Kakashi said, and Konan nodded in agreement. She said, I'll tell Naruto. Kakashi nodded and then hurried out of the room as Konan turned around. Konan heard him go, made a single sign, closed her eyes, directed her waves of thought toward a single person. Away from Sanagakure. After saying goodbye to Gaara that morning, Naruto, Ketsueki, Kurama, Suzaku, and Sankak and Akayuri left the village to travel to Iwagakure, the second.to. last stop on their journey. Sensing Konan's thoughts, Naruto performed a series of seals and used the magic lantern body technique. Eventually, Konan's astral form materialized next to him, her form intangible and refracting multiple colors like a rainbow, with her eyes the only part of her that appeared solid. Konan, what's new? Kakashi's former Konoha ally has sent him a distress signal. With a voice that sounded like it came from a radio, Conan said, I let him go look for it so he could get information from him and whoever else is with him and earn their trust, allowing them to stab them in the back when the time comes. Very good. Do you know where he's heading? Satisfied with her choice, Naruto questioned. He's moving toward the general vicinity of Wind and Fire Country. There is an abandoned trading station there, that's all I know. Hold on, I recognize that location from way back when. I believe the trade station was actually a covert Enbu prison named Shi Facility. Suzaku uttered as he simultaneously lit a fresh cigar with a tiny flame he plucked from his finger and put it in his mouth. Enbu establishment, huh? There could be interesting stuff there that we discover. Naruto grinned and said, come, let's go there. Maybe we can meet up with him after his mission is over. Conan's astral form buzzed away, leaving them by themselves in the desert once more. Naruto, what are you thinking? Akayuri inquired, concerned for him. Maybe it's not so abandoned after all if Kakashi is going to an abandoned Anbu facility. Especially considering that Danzo's root faction is still secretly operating a mook in Konoha. Who knows? With his eyes glowing from behind his mask, Naruto said. The old bastard might be there, and I can kill him. Bloodlust was pouring from his mouth. 5 hours later, number 2 prison carriage. Tsunade was startled to wakefulness when she felt the carriage come to a complete stop. She glanced around for a moment, but then realized that something was covering her head, preventing her from seeing anything. As the root members got off the carriages and started walking away, their footsteps becoming progressively softer, Yamato remarked, I think we've arrived at the Shi facility. Did they just up and leave? From their carriage, Hinata inquired, her chakra absorbing seal preventing her from using her Byakugan. Shino sighed and leaned back against the side of the carriage behind him, saying, I believe so. At nightfall, the trade post appeared to be a desolate wasteland, but that was only the exterior view. Inside the Anbu prison, hidden behind the Genjutsu dome, massive spotlights scanned the surrounding area, and veteran Anbu and root members patrolled the walls and the inside of the outpost. The prison comprised 3 main courtyards. One connecting to the barracks, another to the main gate, and a smaller one that connected to a larger building and guard tower. The moon was nearly at its highest point in the sky, and the only Anbu shadows on the ground were of them until 3 emerged, moving in the direction of the outpost. All right, the roof of the facility's storage area is located on the other side of this wall. We'll sneak in through the roof access hatch once we're done. As he leaned against the prison wall with Sakura and Sasuke on either side of him, Shizaki remarked, from my calculations, there will be 2 guards on top of the roof. After turning on his eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, Sasuke raised his head to observe 3 Anbu moving past the wall they were standing against. He waited for them to pass before raising his hand. They sprinted to the access hatch and slipped down into the warehouse with the bodies of the 2 root members, hiding the evidence just in time as a spotlight swept across the roof. They swiftly scaled the wall and leapt over the edge, silently taking down the 2 Anbu below them on the roof of the storage warehouse, with Sasuke stabbing the one on the left in the throat with his sword while Shizaki dropped down behind the other and wrapped his arm around his neck, pulling back hardly and snapping his neck. Akayuri and Naruto came alone, with Naruto telling the others to wait for them, and they hid up against the wall, watching for the guards to pass. Just as they descended into the warehouse, more shadows appeared, moving as fast as lightning towards the facility. Akayuri, are you ready? Naruto glanced back at his partner and asked, what? Naruto glanced back up at the top of the wall as she nodded, a menacing smirk spreading across her face. With Akayuri trailing closely behind, he timed his run up the wall perfectly, grabbing 2 guards by the throats and pulling them up into the air with him. 3 Anbu were playing cards around a makeshift table on some extra crates when they froze, feeling something strange land behind them. They turned to see Naruto, who with a simple flick of his wrists snapped the Anbu's necks in his grasp, removed his straw hat with Akayuri, and glared at them. Turn on the alert. As Conan waved his claws, one of the Anbu drew his sword and yelled. Let the carnage start. As if this were a game, Naruto leapt at the 3 Anbu and slashed one of their throats with his claws before slamming his foot and fist into the throats of the other 2, instantly killing them. Akayuri smirked as she flung off her cloak, revealing the black vest she wore, allowing her serrated tail blade to snake out and slice through 2 Anbu like they were butter while Conan ran gracefully through their ranks, cutting them down with only his claws, his rage and ferocity growing with each kill. The sirens started to wail, and the barracks unleashed a torrent of Root and Anbu members, ready to attack the intruders. Lol. Is this all there is to Konoha? A burst of blood covered his cloak as he violently laughed and tore out the throat of one Root member before thrusting his hand through the chest of another. After dodging a kunai that was thrown at her, Akuyuri turned to see 10 Anbu sprinting in her direction. Little girl, give up. With a flip of his sword in his hand, one cried out. Young girl. Young lady. Hee. It's hilarious, she chuckled, then turned around and impaled the man who had spoken, using him to draw herself toward the other 9. She then developed multiple curved blades from her wrist, utterly destroying the others. Blood splashed onto Akuyuri's face and vest, and she grinned viciously as she said, real fucking funny. Akuyuri and Naruto were forced to stand back to back by the Anbu as more of them emerged from the barracks, fortunate enough to have had a few moments to realize what was happening. Akuyuri, on the count of 3, duck, got it. Naruto declared, 1, as the Anbu charged at them while brandishing their swords. 2, they said, standing 10 feet apart with their blades gleaming in the moonlight. Triple. Kaijiten. Atami Gomen Suru Akuma no, as Akuyuri dodged, a spray of maroon, spiked chains, similar to Kushina's chakra chains, emerged from his body and impaled about 20 Anbu around them, shouted Naruto. Feiyasutada. Kaijiten. Naruto uttered those words as red flames shot through the chains, reaching the impaled Anbu and setting them ablaze, scorching them to the bone. Akuyuri lifted her left arm, causing segmented missiles to sprout from her wrist and shoot them into the Anbu crowd. This was followed by several explosions of blood and fire, agonizing screams, and flying body parts emerging from the crowd. Go for it, claws and teeth bared, Naruto roared, lunging at the first Anbu in his path. Prison loading area. Tsunade and the others, robbed of sleep since they were taken from Konoha and never to be seen again, awoke from a tired daze to the sounds of slaughter and clashing blades. They discovered that the guards had left for coffee, so they made the decision to sleep whenever they could. Nevertheless, they were unable to doze off due to the terrifying sounds of a massacre taking place overhead. Looks like he's here, Ibiki remarked, smirking. Whom? Guy inquired. Inoichi said, his voice full of seriousness, the yoke cage. With a sneer, Ibiki replied, hard to say, it could just be simple bandits. Kiba said this from the other carriage. You listen to the shit that is going on out there and tell me it's simple bandits. Point taken. Abruptly, from the battle overhead, came the sound of a howl so deep and painful that it could not possibly be human, chilling Yamato and Tsunade to the bone. The sound of the shuriken and kunai clashing turned into an endless metallic battle theme. The subterranean prison complex in their search for Tsunade and the others, Shizaki led Sasuke and Sakura through the enormous maze of torture chambers and prison cells beneath the Shi complex. All 3 of them could hear the sounds of the battle above. It appears that there is a conflict between Root and something up there. This could escalate into a 3-way fight, Sasuke remarked as they rounded a corner. Because all of the Root and Anbu members had been called to battle above, they had been able to move through the prison without any issues. Not if we maintain a low profile, Shizaki remarked. We can't afford to take on the Akatsuki and Root. We're here to rescue Tsunade and the others. Agreed. How should we proceed? As Sakura glanced at the seasoned Anbu, she questioned. It may be necessary for us to save them and leave the compound covertly so as to avoid detection. In response to Sakura's inquiry, Shizaki said, we'll just have to avoid the main courtyard and the battle taking place. Sasuke shook his head. Whoever is up there is destroying Root. Before you know it, they will be done with the Root members. Before they are all gone and we are the only targets left, we must act quickly. With Tsunade's chakra signature intensifying with every second, Shizaki ran faster, saying, for now, we have the element of surprise. Let's not waste it. He rounded a corner and dashed up to a pair of heavy oak doors, the signature at its strongest. Enter now. The main courtyard. These Root members were either inexperienced with limited skills or elderly veterans unfit for this type of work. They crumbled under the brutal attacks of Naruto and Akuyuri like a stack of dominoes. Despite this, the fighting was light-hearted and enjoyable for the 2. With every moment that went by, more and more Anbu arrived to be slaughtered. It was almost like one gigantic hydra. As one Anbu was killed, 2 would appear to take his place. Before long, just 10 people remained in the courtyard, their bones and spirits broken. Naruto grinned evilly and said, "I got this one." He then drew down low, his arms crossed like an X and his palms facing outward. Suddenly, he vanished, turning into a blur that swept across all 10 Anbu, surprising the men at first before blood spurted from their necks after Naruto's claws tore them all to pieces. There had been at least 200 Anbu and root members stationed at the Shi facility. Akuyuri and Naruto stood in the middle of the courtyard, surrounded by those 200, either already dead or slowly dying, while he appeared beside Akuyuri and licked the blood from his fangs and fingers as he watched the 10 Anbu fall, joining the rest. Their cloaks were drenched in blood, and they stood in a lake of blood formed by the 2 corpse mounds on either side of them. Naruto took a few moments to sniff the air and remarked, "This was pleasant. Wait a minute." He recognized the chakra he smelled, and a savage fang smile began to spread across his face. "Akuyuri, do you sense them?" Akuyuri asked, focusing and perceiving the people Naruto was referring to. A smile came over her face too. He growled as his mask started to reassemble. "Yes. They're here. I can smell their fear. They're directly below us. What actions ought we to take? We wait for them, then we kill them." "Every single one of them?" Akuyuri looked up at him as his mask fully formed, then she asked. Naruto turned around and walked towards the shadows, Akuyuri following him, saying, "All of them." Active area. Tsunade was ecstatic to see Shizaki release them by kicking the door quickly with his boot. After breaking off her cuffs and removing the seal from her, Tsunade said, "Took you long enough, Shizaki." This gave her permission to take off the burlap sack covering her head. "I apologize, ma'am. Had to back off a few hundred yards so they wouldn't detect us," Shizaki apologized, freeing the other 2 as he went around. "Us?" asked Guy before turning to see Sasuke and Sakura assisting and freeing the other rookies. "I hate how they caught us like that," Kiba growled while softly petting his enormous dog Akamaru. With a little nod of gratitude to Sasuke, Neji sighed, "At least we were rescued." Before he froze, Yamato said, "Okay, we have to go while the yoke cage or whoever's up there is busy with Root." It went completely silent, and Ibiki said, "Listen. Are they all dead, really?" Even though she didn't have to, Ino whispered her question. "I'm not sure." They soon arrived at the warehouse above, with Shizaki and Yamato opening the doors and making sure it was clear to escape. "We need to get out of here fast though before we find out who won," said Guy as they fled the prison carriages and the loading area. "Leave a trail." As they crossed the smaller courtyard and emerged from the warehouse, he muttered, until they came to a complete stop. There was a trail of blood behind Yamato, likely from his attempt to drag himself away from the fight before he died, as he limped forward and stood over a mangled corpse of a root member, his lower half completely cut off and spilling blood and innards out onto the ground, bracing himself for whatever sight might be on the other side. The sight that greeted him as he turned the corner nearly made him throw up. Blood was literally streaming from the numerous mounds of bodies that littered the courtyard. The air there smelled of death. Sakura turned her head away, gasping at the macabre sight, and even Ibiki, who was usually not easily disturbed, was startled as Tsunade and the others followed Yamato. "May God grant them mercy on their souls," Kiba said, abhorring what she saw. Who would have thought to take such an action? As they neared the main gate, inches from freedom, Hinata questioned. Suddenly, a voice that was icy cold struck their ears. "That, my dear, would be me." With red eyes, they all turned slowly to face the tallest tower on the main building. They saw a silhouetted figure standing before the moon in the sky, and their eyes widened. He stepped off the tower's edge carelessly and fell to the ground, landing soundlessly like a cat. Tsunade recognized the man right away thanks to his flowing Akatsuki cloak and white kitsune mask. Akuma. With a growl, the leader of the Akatsuki rising to face the group. Similar to what I've done at Tsunade's location, Akuyuri landed behind him and stared at them with her glowing Rinnegan, asking Naruto, "Why are you in this place?" I believed the Akatsuki to be impartial. As the only one who knew the truth, Tsunade questioned, Naruto laughing as Sasuke glared at him. "Well, I just thought I might help you guys out, get rid of Danzo's lapdogs for you." "How were you aware that they were root members?" As Naruto fixed Guy with his icy gaze and asked in a suspicious manner. "Everything is known to me, Captain Yamato, just as I know that Kakashi got that little distress signal you sent him." Naruto grinned, and Yamato's eyes widened. "How were you able to know? How about we find out, huh?" Naruto counted down, then turned to the right, followed by the others, as a figure appeared at the top of the wall overlooking the courtyard. "He should be arriving here in 3, 2, 1, he said. "Greetings, Kakashi." Sensei. Smirking, Sakura leapt into the courtyard, landing in the middle of Tsunade and Naruto, but only a few feet away. "Greetings, Kakashi. Could you tell me how I found out you were coming?" As Kakashi glanced over at Yamato, Naruto asked. "What does Kakashi mean?" questioned Yamato, just before his heart broke and the rest of the group saw Kakashi approach to stand next to Naruto. "I apologize, but Konoha has turned corrupt. It was impossible for me to serve a village that mistreated a child for so long," declared Kakashi, removing the henge he had covered himself in to reveal his Akatsuki cloak and his slashed Konoha headband pulled up to show his newly red eyes. At what Kakashi had gained, Sasuke let out a gasp. "Kakashi? How?" Just as Kakashi blinked, he stammered. With Naruto's transplant of Obito's other Sharingan into his right eye socket, he no longer possessed a single Sharingan but two, allowing him to make better use of his Mangekyo Sharingan's powers and experience less draining. With a narrowed gaze toward his former sensei, Kakashi remarked, "Had a little help from Akuma here." Heartbroken at the sight of the dreaded red clouds of Akatsuki he now adorned, Guy uttered the words, "Kakashi," at his eternal rival. Naruto looked at Tsunade again and said, "Well, now that the reunion is over, I'm going to kill you." Tsunade growled, "Damn Akatsuki, I knew you were still the same." Just then, Sasuke moved forward and raised his sword. "Tsunade, you and the others withdraw, I'll keep him waiting." "You can't be serious, Sasuke. You think you can defeat him after all these root members were eliminated?" yelled Guy, and Sakura followed suit, standing beside him. "Don't worry, I'll take care of him." With an evil smile hidden behind his mask, Naruto said, "Get out while you still can." Tsunade said, "Sakura," and then she turned to smile at her. "We'll be back before you know it, so don't worry," Sakura grinned, but then she took the threat in front of them seriously once more. Tsunade turned to follow the others out of the courtyard and out of the building, saying, "All right. Be safe." This left the Akatsuki members alone. "What is the purpose of your mask?" asked Sasuke, Sakura giving him a perplexed look. "Do you recognize this man?" As Sasuke squinted at Naruto, she questioned. He crossed his arms and Naruto smirked, "Oh, he certainly does." Sakura remained perplexed as Naruto sighed and said, "I'd rather not." "Don't you think Sakura should know that Naruto is the head of Akatsuki?" Sasuke inquired, and Sakura turned to face the Akatsuki leader. The man laughed and held up his mask. Sakura gradually saw his face as it slowly faded into his body as his chakra. She gasped when she saw the Konoha headband cut, and after a while she realized that Sasuke was right. Naruto, she stammered, and Naruto smirked at her, showing off his glistening fangs, beastly whisker marks, and red eyes as he crossed his arms once more. Naruto sneered as Kakashi said, "Now will you look at that? Team 7, back together again. I'll have the girl with the pink hair. She'll be simple to remove." Akuyuri grinned, drawing a scowl from Sakura. "Oh, are you crazy? Come on, young lady, show me what you've got." Akuyuri laughed, her tail slithering back and forth as she dashed toward the second courtyard, Sakura snapping to follow. Holding out his blade, Sasuke declared, "I won't hold back, and neither will Sakura." Naruto lowered his arms in response. With a chakra receiver forming in his hand, Naruto extended his arm and said, "I know, it will make it all the more pleasing. When I slit your throat." Channeling his chakra into it, he broke it off, the blade beginning to lengthen into a large staff with 6 hoop rings hanging from it as a circle formed at the end. He swung Hagoromo's Shikuho, which was now his, around and aimed its sharpened end at him, daring him to attack. "Be alert. Backcourt." Sakura leapt to the side just as a barrage of missiles burst where she had been standing, enveloping the earth in a tremendous blast. "What, afraid? Go ahead and battle me." Akuyuri laughed as she swung her blade tail at Sakura, just missing her by an inch. Expecting to hit Akuyuri, Sakura swung her fist back and threw it, but instead her fist got stuck in the iron grip of another arm that protruded from her shoulder. "That was a bad move," Akuyuri smirked as she turned and grabbed Sakura's throat with her other arm. Out of her forearm, a hand appeared and opened, revealing an arm cannon that began to spin faster and glow brighter. "Hee hee hee. Farewell, young girl. Akuyuri grinned as the arm cannon began to glow brighter and brighter. With a growl, she tightened her grip on Akuyuri's wrist, causing wires and metallic components to burst out from beneath the skin. Just as Akuyuri was about to smile, Sakura stooped down and struck her in the stomach. She screamed as she forced Akuyuri to fly back and hit the wall across from her. Several of her ribs snapped instantly from the impact, sending blood flying from her mouth before she fell to her knees and spat some more. Breathing in deep breaths, Sakura coughed and stood to look at Akuyuri, watching as her arm gradually returned to normal and the extra arm reverted to her arm, causing her to snicker. She said, her eyes slightly insane, "You're going to pay for that," as she looked up at Sakura. She hurled her right arm in her direction and sent a rocket-like fist flying towards her. Sakura leapt to the side to quickly avoid the attack, only to see Akuyuri standing next to her, cocking her other fist back. She flew away from Sakura and into another wall, leaving a massive crater in the wall as she slammed her fist into her side, sending a loud crack echoing out from her. A hand formed from his Susanoo's skeleton as he dodged a swing from Naruto's Shikuho and jumped back a couple of feet as he heard her cry out in pain. "Happy birthday!" Sasuke cried out, and Naruto smirked as he sidestepped the blow, splaying his four limbs and bared his fangs to him. "Hiroshima, are you okay?" As blood ran down his cheek and out of his right eye, Sasuke screamed. Angry Sakura trailed behind Akuyuri as she walked through the archway, dragging her barely conscious form to the ground in front of her with blood dripping from her lip. Naruto turned to look at the entrance to the courtyard from the secondary courtyard and grinned. "I'm done with the pink bitch. She won't survive until tomorrow due to her injuries," snarled Akuyuri as she approached Kakashi, who was reading the Icha Icha book he had brought with him. "Oh no. I really have to get over this fight," as he straightened out his fingers and lowered his arm, lightning crackling around his fingertips, Sasuke thought. "Chidori," I yelled as I started to run towards Naruto, and he followed suit. "This time, let's see who prevails." While throwing back his arm and creating a red Rasengan in his palm, Naruto yelled. They charged at each other again, their weapons colliding in a screeching stalemate, as quickly as they struck opposite parts of the facility walls. They threw their arms out at each other, their jutsu colliding and creating a massive explosion, sending both flying back. "Naruto, why would you do all of this and join the Akatsuki?" cried Sasuke, and Naruto gave him a savage smile. "You're unaware, but Konoha is dishonest. They tortured, chastised, and detested me. Simply due to what I had bottled up inside of me. They detested and loathed me. The village is now only a shell of what it was before the first Hokage's will of fire left. To achieve my goal of bringing world peace, some people must give their lives in order to protect others. Konoha is going to burn." Growling, Naruto swung out with his Shikuho, slicing open his clothes and leaving a thin cut across his stomach as he kicked back Sasuke. "Well, I will concede that the village does have a darker side. Why, though, murder everyone? How about your pals? Konoha couldn't have been that bad with them around," cried Sasuke, just before Naruto started to chuckle and then burst out laughing. "I'm already in hell, Sasuke," he bellowed as they turned renegade with their weapons, Sasuke's sword and Naruto's Shikuho sending sparks flying with each blow. It was almost like the battle between the son of the sage, the eldest with his sword and the youngest with his Shikuho, but the roles were reversed. "Please, Naruto, I'm powerless against you. Please leave this revenge route and come back to Konoha with us. I want you not to become like me." "Shoot it, for me, it's too late. In addition, I want to avoid going back to that hellhole at all costs," Naruto snarled. "I hate you and everyone from that village." He then swung his clawed hand around and struck Sasuke across the shoulder, deeply gashing the flesh. "No, there is still time. You would have killed me by now with that stomach swat if you really did hate us. But you held back. Konoha is still missed." Naruto stepped back and gave Sasuke a menacing look as he said, "You seem hesitant. What are you saying?" As Sasuke approached him, he cautiously asked. "Naruto, please accompany us back to the village. Sakura can recover, and Team 7 can come together once more. Put the Akatsuki behind you and let go of your anger." Sasuke put his hand on Naruto's shoulder and said, "I can't bear to see you like this." His eternal Mangekyo Sharingan faded. With a clenched fist and a dropped Shikuho that clanged to the ground, Sasuke declared, "I'm not going to lose another friend." Naruto's expression softened. Really? With trembling, he asked. Sasuke grinned and put his hand on Naruto's chest, feeling the rhythmic beat of his heart. Sasuke declared, "When I returned to the village, I vowed to protect it from anything that harmed it." Naruto recalled making the same vow after graduating from the academy. Glancing over, Sasuke saw that Sasuke had stood up and was giving him a meek smile. With a single tear falling from his eye, Sasuke stuttered, "Which means men like you must be killed to preserve its safety." "I'm sorry." Naruto's eyes widened, seeing blue lightning appear on Sasuke's hand before he reared back. Chidori. Everything passed by so quickly, like a blur. Blood spurted from the wound and down Naruto's cloak on both sides, covering Sasuke's hand as he drove his hand through his chest, through his heart, and out of his back. "I apologize so much," Sasuke choked as he withdrew his arm from Naruto's body and staggered back, his whole body trembling and his nerves going numb. With his eyes going glassy and his body going numb, Naruto fell to his knees and finally the ground. Just as Akuyuri was about to scream, Kakashi stopped her and comforted her. "Simply observe." Sakura resisted as Sasuke ran over to her and started dragging her in the direction of the gate. "Nah, he can still be healed by us, please release me." "No, this is now resolved." Just as they were ready to leave the courtyard, Sasuke exclaimed, "I've stopped him for good." Heard a small sound behind him. His body jumped up and down, the sound of a steady heartbeat piercing the air, and he turned to see Naruto's body begin to expel his demonic chakra, an expression of horror dawning on his face. His fingers started to twitch, causing him to move. With a deep, guttural laugh that started small but kept getting louder with every second that went by, he slowly pushed himself off the ground. When Akuyuri witnessed Naruto emerge from the jaws of death itself, her smile reappeared. With a startling pop, his head snapped up, leaving Sakura and Sasuke haunted by his crazy smile and eyes. "Uchiha, where do you think you're going?" As he began to move slowly in their direction, Sasuke and Sakura retreated from whatever he had transformed into, he asked. Sasuke's chakra was running low, so he was frightened and scared and could not fight. Sakura tried to defend him, but Naruto smirked, then backhanded her, sending her flying a few yards to the right. After his back struck the wall, Sasuke turned to face his once friend, turned enemy, gazing up into his angry eyes. His red eyes glaring at him, burning with the fires of hatred, he realized they had changed. Their yellow sclera had turned to a pitch black color. Eyes he had previously seen within himself. With lightning fast reflexes, Naruto grabbed Sasuke by the throat and lifted him into the air using his superhuman strength. As his grip tightened, Sasuke's breathing became labored and rapid as he was gradually strangled. How are you surviving?" Coughing, Sasuke continued to wear Naruto's crazy smile. "It's pretty easy for you humans to comprehend," Naruto remarked. Sasuke raised an eyebrow, curious as to what Naruto meant when he called them humans. "I've risen above you mortals and become one of the very demons you avoided. I am now the second Kyuubi, a Biju. We Biju don't remain dead after we pass away. We are resurrected as though nothing had happened because we are beings composed of chakra." Sasuke's eyes widened in fear at this thing that was once Naruto, but Naruto grinned and said, "The more tails you have, the faster the reviving is. And this battle, this was too simple. Despite knowing that your efforts were in vain, I'm going to let you live." "You were correct. I had my doubts about the burning of Konoha, but now that you are merely attempting to kill me over that shithole, I have reconsidered." Naruto's grip tightened, blotting Sasuke's vision with lights. "I will not stop, I will not rest. Until every last man, woman, and child has their throats ripped out and their blood poured into the streets of Konohagakure," Naruto declared. Naruto made Sasuke look into his eyes and said, "And now I'm going to let you experience a little of the hell I experienced while in Konoha." Sasuke could feel the chakra rising towards them. "Hell. Level 4. Naruto uttered, causing Sasuke's eyes to widen and glow. Sakura turned to look at what was happening to Sasuke when she heard him cry out in agony. Her ears began to ring. Massive, gory gashes began to open up all over his body, gushing blood that stained his clothes in patches of red. Blood spurted from his mouth as Naruto dropped Sasuke to the ground, watching as the wounds kept opening up and flooding the lake with the blood of the dead root members. "Akuyuri, Kakashi. Come with us as we go." Steam rose from the hole in Iwagakure's chest as it started to heal itself, and Naruto declared, "Iwagakure needs its yoke cage." With a narrow glimpse of Naruto and his group departing, Sasuke called out to Kakashi, Kakashi, help." Kakashi paused and gave Sasuke a quick glance before turning to leave, acting as though he hadn't noticed anything. Naruto put on his mask again and said, "We're heading to Kirigakure," as they left. "If they passed or not doesn't matter to me. After Saiken, Isobu, and Yahiko are gone, we murder each and every one of them. All I want to do is kill people and taste blood between my teeth." After a week, Iwagakure, an Iwa Chunin with a scar beneath his bottom lip that curved under his chin and down the length of his neck to his chest, said, "Can you believe we got guard duty?" The other Iwa Chunin, standing next to him outside the village gate, said, "Don't blame me. You're the one who just had to complain to Lord Tsuchikage about not getting any missions, and he decided to stick you here with my own sorry ass because I was there with you when you complained." Well, ever since word spread throughout the 5 great countries of the destruction of Takigakure and Otogakure, the rumor of this shinobi called the Yoke Cage, Kumo and Suna allying themselves with him, and now the destruction of Kiri, I feel like we're missing out on some serious action. The first statement was met with anger. "You keep telling yourself that. Personally, I say let this guy gut the other villages and leave you alone." Hell, with Kiri totally annihilated, Kumo's arms reduction rumor and Suna's recovering from that massive sandstorm that hit them a couple days back, we're technically the strongest of the 5, or 4 villages I guess. And get this, I heard that this guy, the Yoke Cage or whatever his name is, took out a secret Anbu facility on the border between Wind Country and Fire Country. Who would have thought? Said shortly before continuing to watch the horizon for anyone who was approaching his village. "Hey, what's that?" the first one said, squinting his eyes as he saw a figure approaching the village holding a scroll while wearing a black cloak and a straw hat. Grabakure Mountains. While peacefully meditating in the mountains, Son Goku and Kakuo sensed the entrance of a well-known chakra. "Looks like he's finally here," Son Goku muttered while maintaining his focus. "Yes, Iwa will have a new leader," Kakuo said, letting out a long breath and settling in. "Iwagakure." As the man drew nearer, the second said, "Don't know. Let's wait. Last thing we need is to piss off some traveler or, more importantly, a delegate of Lord Tsuchikage." Only 3 of the 4 people who followed him had on the man's cloaks. The other 2 were all wearing straw hats. The one without a cloak was much taller than the other 3, wearing a black vest and covered in tattoos that extended from his wrists to his shoulders and possibly down the length of his body. Though the faceplate was hidden, they could tell he was wearing a navy blue hood, black mask, and headband from behind the veil of the straw hat. The red clouds that adorned the black cloaks of the 3 individuals donning them made the second Iwa Chunin frown. "Akatsuki. What do you want?" he questioned, the group's leader glaring at him. "Let me pass. First off, why should we, and second, just who the hell do you think you are? We aren't exactly on peaceful terms with you," the first person replied with a growl. The man eyed the first and baring his fangs behind his mask, "I am here to meet with your Tsuchikage to discuss leadership changes." The man growled deeply as he asked, "Well, that answers my first question, and that's a hell no to it. Now, tell us who you are," with an offensive snarl this time. The man said, "Who am I? I am the Yoke Cage, of course." The first Iwa shinobi scoffed as the other 2's faces turned white. The man laughed and cocked his head to the right. "Listen, pal, the Yoke Cage doesn't exist. It's just a silly little rumor going around to frighten the other villages into submission." The first man slashed his claws across the sensitive skin, causing his throat to burst into a plume of blood before the second Iwa Chunin could even blink. Then the tattooed man literally shot his hand forward, joining his hand to his lower elbow with a stream of black tendrils. With his other arm turning a deeper brown, he speared forward with his fingers as he grabbed the second Chunin by the throat and pulled him in. The man was given a fleeting glimpse of his faceplate beneath his straw hat as he thrust his entire arm through the man's stomach. A slashed Kirigakure faceplate was what it was. As he led Akayuri, Kakashi, and Yahiko through the gates of Iwagakure, Naruto remarked, "Silly little rumor indeed." Konohagakure. Over the course of the previous week, Tsunade, Homura, Kaharu, Yamato, Gai, Ibiki, Inoichi, Shizaki, Sasuke, Sakura, and the other members of the Rookie 11 experienced great sorrow upon learning that Kakashi had joined the Akatsuki. This was especially upsetting for Sasuke and Sakura, as they had previously joined with Naruto and kept that information to themselves. After Tsunade healed him from his wounds, she questioned Sasuke about how it happened. He claimed that Akuma, Naruto, had somehow caused the injuries with something known as Hell Level .4, and that he had seen his eyes glow beforehand. Ibiki surmised that it might have been a dojutsu that had afflicted it, something they had never heard of or seen before, and that was strong enough to cause wounds like those that Sasuke received. After that, they had gone back to Konoha and revealed Danzo's deceit, leading the Anbu, under Shizaki's leadership, to remove him from his position of authority and formally end Root for good. Tsunade was relieved to learn that Danzo was being held on charges of attempted coup and kidnapping. That was 2 days prior. Now that she's in a council meeting under extreme stress, Shizaki is going through the same agony behind his mask. Regardless of their alliance with this Yokage character, we must try to rebuild our alliance with Suna so we can continue trading, Kaharu sternly stated as Tsunade massaged her temples. Had the unidentified shinobi not been hurled through the meeting room window and crashed onto the table, the meeting would have continued. Kaharu and Homura were clueless about the identity of the man, but Tsunade recognized him the moment she laid eyes on the corpse. It was the Tsuchikage Onoki. His arms were missing, exposing a fractured shoulder bone, and his back was torn to pieces. His throat was also severed. What bothered them the most was that he had something resembling a knife or claw engraved into his chest that said, "You're next." Glancing out of the broken window where he had been hurled, they saw a cloaked figure standing atop a pole, pointing with one hand at them while wearing a white mask that resembled a demon tanuki, a raccoon-like creature with orange markings. The figure was gone, like a ghost, when they turned to look back at the body and then at the location where he had been. Much to the disapproval of the council members, Tsunade told Shizaki, "Send out Anbu to patrol the village wall while Chunin and Jonin patrol the inside," before she left the room. She intended to hunt on her own. Yahiko was lying on the ground, leaning against a building, in an alleyway not far from the Hokage Tower. He was waiting for something, with his eyes closed and his straw hat resting on his right side. When Naruto had sacked Kirigakure and left it a smoldering crater, he had spared him and the few Kiri shinobi he thought worthy of life. Mei Terumi, the 5th Mizukage, Chojuro, the last surviving swordsman, and Ao, a shinobi World War veteran, were 3 of these survivors. Yahiko stayed with Naruto and joined Akatsuki after Kirigakure fell because she wanted to see Sengoku again and because she had heard that he was involved. He was given an Akatsuki cloak now, but since he was in Konoha, he had assumed the appearance of an elderly man. Yahiko has been around since Yagura's time as Mizukage, so I'm estimating he's between 40 and 45 years old. See art. Image point 415163103. He opened his eyes to see the cloaked figure kneeling next to him. Yahiko got up and spun around, briefly dispelling the henge as he shook off his cloak and showed off his surgically repaired back that was only covered in 3 masks. The cloak of the masked figure transformed into a tangle of black threads, revealing its beastly form, a miniature Ichibi. After a moment of grunting, it flew into Yahiko's back and settled next to the top left mask, reattaching itself to his skin and bringing Yahiko's heart back. The idea was not to simply toss the Tsuchikage's disfigured body out the meeting room window, but to divert her gaze from her upper-level office. He sent another heart to the office to quickly find what Naruto had asked him to look for before the late Onoki's body was removed from the scroll he had brought with him. Kushina Uzumaki's diary. When Naruto was younger, the 3rd Hokage, who had been alive at the time, had informed him that his mother had kept a journal detailing the events leading up to her childbirth, and that he would be able to read it when he turned 16. The diary was one of the few possessions his parents had left him, and Naruto had orders to do everything in his power to get away with it alive. Of course, he suspected the old man would have edited the diary if he had lived long enough to do so. As he raised the henge once more and turned to leave the alleyway, he thought, "Time to go." Suddenly, a sharp command rang out. A Jonin, suspicious of Yahiko as he emerged from the alley, yelled, "Halt." "Yes?" Yahiko questioned, pretending to be elderly and hacking up a bad cough. With narrowed eyes, the Jonin inquired, "Where were you just recently?" Yahiko, sounding much older than his actual age of 43, said, "Right here resting. It was quiet so I felt I could sit here until my strength returned." After a coughing fit near him, the Jonin crossed his arms at the old man, and withdrew, not wanting to catch whatever this man had. You haven't been near the Hokage Tower, have you? The Jonin inquired, unsure of the man's age. Yahiko, growing a little impatient with this man and desiring to rip his heart out at that moment, asked, "Do I look like I have the energy to make it up all those steps?" Before leaving the village to look for any other suspicious characters, the Jonin remarked, "No, I suppose not. Just stay out of trouble, old-timer." Bastard, Yahiko muttered to himself as he began to make his way to the village gate. He wanted to leave as soon as possible. God, it took so long. Now I understand why Naruto despises this place so much. It's full of bastards like that guy. Isobu complained. And Yahiko laughed to himself about his biju. They made their way through the village to the gate and were about to leave without incident when another order was yelled, but this time it came from a woman. Yahiko turned around and narrowed his eyes when he heard the voice say, "Stop." It was none other than Tsunade. "Yes?" Yahiko inquired, annoyed once more. Tsunade asked, "Who are you? And don't tell me you're harmless. You may look and act like it, but I know you're not an ordinary old man." Shizaki stood by her side as several Anbu surrounded him. Yahiko, who was now 6 feet 10 inches tall, started laughing and peered down at the others. "It doesn't matter who I am. What matters is that my friend and leader sent you a message. Take it seriously. He also wants to tell you that, in order to prevent panic throughout the village, he advises you to keep the incident at your tower a secret and to remember your previous transgressions when he comes looking for you," Yahiko said, just before Tsunade suddenly reared back his clenched fist and threw it at him. Before she could even get to him, he jumped out of the way and flew up to stand on the gate, leaving a massive crater where Tsunade had slammed her fist into the earth. As two Anbu joined Yahiko on top of the gate, swords drawn, Tsunade asked, "Do you really think I'll let you walk out of here?" Yahiko said, "You underestimate me, Tsunade," as he removed his straw hat and let it fall to the ground, landing in the center of the Anbu group that was gathered around Tsunade. Then, dispelling the henge with a single seal, he shocked the entire Anbu and Tsunade with his true identity and Akatsuki cloak. Yahiko growled and balled his fists, saying, "Now, I'm only going to say this once, so listen up." Yahiko hissed, Tsunade narrowing her eyes at the slashed Kiri symbol, having heard of the destruction of Kirigakure. "You're going to let me walk out of this village untouched and unchallenged. You will not send Anbu to track me. If you do not comply, my leader will assure that Konoha's destruction will come sooner than you think. Stand down." Tsunade sighed, and the Anbu on the gate lowered their swords to comply. "Enjoyable doing business with you. And, here's a little parting gift." Yahiko grinned broadly and removed his mask. The straw hat was hit by a glob of black gunk that he spat out, and it began to violently shift and transform before exploding into a maze of black threads that ensnared Tsunade, Shizaki, and all of his Anbu. Tsunade growled as she turned to face the gate. Yahiko had vanished from it, and the two Anbu who were still there and unbound by the black threads were searching for him without even noticing his departure. Tsunade looked back up at the location where Yahiko was standing atop the gate after they had all been set free. When he suddenly materialized next to her, Yamato questioned, "Was that really wise, Tsunade?" As if she had realized the man's true strength. The man was strong, Yamato. He was around Sannin level, if not more. No doubt the leader he was talking about was Akuma, and seeing what he did at the Shi facility, imagine what he could do on a much larger scale. If we managed to have him restrained, I doubt he would have told us anything and simply killed himself or waited for Akuma to come here and destroy us. That was a good decision on your part. Who knows what he could have done. Iwagakure. Tower of Pain. As Naruto took his mother's diary from him, Yahiko bowed before leaving. "Thank you very much, Yahiko. You can join Mei, Ao and Chojuro now. They've integrated themselves into the ranks in Iwagakure and will be safe from now on." Alongside him in the room were Konan, Kakashi, and Akayuri. When Senkuku, Ketsueki, and Suzaku arrived in Pain's tower, Konan gave them Akatsuki cloaks and gave them official membership in the group. With a mixture of excitement and fear, Naruto peered down at the diary he was holding, wondering what secrets it held. As Konan, Akayuri, and Kakashi left the office, Naruto sat down in his chair and placed the book on his desk, saying, "I would like to be alone. Please, leave me." After they had left, Naruto shut the hidden door that led from the pod room into the office and took out the book, eager to peruse its pages. After 3 hours, Suzaku was smoking another while strolling calmly around the tower and taking in its architectural details. Behind his now customized Akatsuki cloak, he wore a headband made of slashed Iwagakure, loose around his neck. He had his cloak made of fireproof material because he has a natural affinity for fire and can create flames from his own body. This allows him to create fires without removing his cloak. As the hallowed resting place of Aim's god, Lord Pain, the tower was a foreboding place of secrets and darkness. He almost choked on his cigar, about to suck up a cloud, when he flinched at the demon howl that rang out through the tower, ringing his eardrums and all the walls. The members were outside his office door in a matter of seconds, nearly trembling from the intense demonic chakra emanating from the space. Suzaku whispered to Kurama, "Do you know what's wrong with him?" Kurama just shrugged. When Senkuku pressed his ear against the door and heard noises coming from the other side, Akiyuri whispered, "I don't know, he was fine earlier. I don't know what could be wrong with him." Conan whispered, "One of you, go in there." Akiyuri swallowed and got to her feet as the others took a step back. Naruto was still seething with rage when she opened the door and looked inside. She saw that his demonic chakra had returned to his body. His mother's slightly burned diary was in his hand. "Naruto, is everything all right?" As Naruto spoke, the others peeked in from behind the door frame, one by one. "Yes, it's all right everyone. I'm fine, at least for now." "Why did you get so angry, Naruto?" Kakashi questioned, his calm expression belying his concern for his friend. Naruto growled, chilling everyone with his tone of voice, "It's something concerning with what I read in my mother's diary. It seems it's time I paid someone a visit concerning this sin." Blood was going to run across Konoha, after 3 days. In Konoha, it was nighttime, and the majority of people were either sleeping or out dining at a restaurant, or they were on guard duty. One dark figure, though, defied this custom in the village's more sedate residential area. He shot the Anbu guards perched atop the Konoha maximum security prison roof after leaping from his position and landing silently there. He approached the closed door that concealed the stairwell leading to the prison below. Opening the door, the man grinned behind his mask. He could sense the man's chakra, which was the cause of everything that had happened up to that point. It was past due that this man made good on his debts. Calmly, he descended the stairs to the second floor and unlocked the door. With a knuckle crack, the man turned to face the Anbu guards, saying, "Sorry guys, but I need to see someone, and you're not going to get in the way." His demonic chakra erupted like a violent storm, but nobody could feel it or hear the terrified screams of the Anbu that Naruto had massacred because of the soundproof walls and chakra-dampening barriers that the prison had erected around the complex. Walking past the heavily bloodied and butchered bodies of the guards, their blood splattered across the cages and coating the metal walkways, he brushed himself off as 9 tails of his chakra re-entered his body. At the end of the walkway, he turned left, his smile widening as he got closer to the cell containing his target. The man in question revealed one of his eyes, which was covered in bandages, and narrowed it upon hearing footsteps approaching his cell. Danzo stood up and faced the man wearing the mask, staring blankly at the mask that covered his face. "So you finally come," he said. Once he put his hand on the bars, they melted and the man said, "Danzo Shimura, you shall receive punishment for your sins." Danzo smiled slightly, channeling his unrestricted chakra to his hidden right eye since the bars that contained a material that nullified chakras had melted. Danzo grinned and said, "Oh really? I thought you were just rescuing me." The man laughed and crossed his arms before giving Danzo a fierce look. He said, "Don't even try using the Koto Amatsukami on me, Danzo. I've already nullified that left eye of yours and those Sharingan in your right arm, which means no Izanagi, which means I can do this." With his right hand, he swept up, and his chakra formed into a solid blade that sliced through Danzo's right shoulder socket, severing the arm from his body. The golden sealing arm braces concealed and controlled the 10 Sharingan in Hashirama's cells embedded in the arm, and he grunted as he grasped the bloody stump in an attempt to stop the blood flowing from the severed limb. As the masked man entered the cell and peered down at him, he fell to his knees and raised a wide eye. With a swift motion, he reached forward, tightened his grip around Danzo's throat, and pulled him into the air. The man's grip tightened until Danzo was unconscious. "You, along with all of Konoha, will suffer, the streets will run with blood, and all of you will burn in hell," the man growled. Hokage Tower. The following day Tsunade sighed, waiting for Shizaki to return from the Jonin meeting with an update on Danzo's situation in the prison. She had grown to detest her position as Hokage, which is why she stuck with it in spite of the council's incessant squabbling. Their egocentric beliefs were the cause of everything that was going on. Naruto, why did you have to go? She thought sadly, fighting back the tears that threatened to spill out in front of the group of jonin gathered in front of her. Genma slyly chewed on a senbon and said, Lady Hokage, may I go look for Shizaki? He's later than usual and this meeting can't be delayed by him any longer. Tsunade said, you might as well. Go to the prison and see if he's there. Genma shrugged and left the room, his hands in his pockets. Kurenai, Anko, Guy, Shizune, who she discovered was being cared for by Anbu and was devoted to Shizaki, and herself waited for Genma to return with Shizaki in front of her. Guy was twiddling his thumbs, Kurenai had her arms crossed and was looking out the window casually, Anko was nibbling on a dango stick, and Shizune was standing next to her, waiting, every few seconds fidgeting. Tsunade was tapping the desk calmly at first, but after a few minutes she grew agitated and left a clear mark on the surface of her desk with her finger. Where the hell are those two? Exclaimed Tsunade, growing angrier by the moment as people in front of her grew apprehensive about her potential to strike anyone who misstepped. Tsunade! Exclaimed Iruka as he dashed into the office, his eyes wide enough to burst and drops of perspiration running down his brow. However, fear rather than fatigue was the main cause. What's wrong? Inquired Tsunade, who was aware that not many things could terrify someone about Iruka's sound mound. Iruka motioned for her to follow him, and she did, along with everyone else in the room. It's Danzo. He's been attacked. I need your help right away. After arriving at the Konoha hospital, they hurried to his room upon hearing muffled screams coming from behind a white door. Tsunade briefly believed that the man was either being killed or was not receiving painkillers. She realized that no number of painkillers could ease Danzo's suffering, and she froze in place upon seeing the horrifying sight of the men. Danzo Shimura's body had been, for want of a better term, utterly disfigured and butchered. Bandages were now covering every inch of his body, damp with blood from his wounds. Tsunade was most terrified by the fact that Danzo's body was only half of what it had once been, or rather, if he even had hands or toes at all. If it weren't for the sight of so much blood, she would have screamed. His legs extended past the point where the kneecaps would have been, his mouth was muffled by the bandages covering his entire face, and his right arm was gone entirely. His other arm had been torn off just below the elbow. Guy hurried out of the room, his face turning as green as his bodysuit. Oh dear God, he muttered. When the man was brought into the hospital by Shizaki and Genma, one of the doctors, who had almost lost his breakfast and lunch, exclaimed, Lady Hokage, we're so glad you're here. We've given as many painkillers that his body can take. Still trying to get over all the blood, Tsunade asked in a trembling voice, what happened to him? What are the injuries behind the wrappings? The doctor looked back at Danzo, who was struggling to scream out in pain and shivering. I've never seen anything like it. His body has been turned into something I cannot even begin to describe right now. We nearly lost him right when he came in, but at the same time there is something keeping him alive that I wish was somehow our work, the doctor said. Tsunade, fighting back the urge to throw up, asked, what are his injuries? Shizune was there to support her, unconcerned that the other jonin behind them were gaping in shock at what had become of the elderly warhawk, Danzo Shimura. Danzo Shimura was stabbed, cut, gutted, and ultimately mauled by his attacker. Either this was some sadistic enemy shinobi or we could have another, the doctor continued, before Tsunade cut him off. Aside from the loss of his four limbs up to their joints, the exception being his right arm, which we found at the cell with sealing braces on that destroyed the arm when we tried to open them. Tsunade did not want stories spreading about some kind of rogue demon circulating. When Sakura saw Danzo, she paled. We came here as soon as I can, what's going? Holy hell! Yelled Sasuke as he dashed into the room. Tsunade gave the order, the two nodding and leaving the room. Perfect timing, you two. Go with Genma and Shizaki to Danzo's prison cell and get Kiba and Hana Inuzuka to help you find out what happened there. The doctor noticed that Lady Hokage's gaze had returned to him and said, Lady Hokage, there is something else you should know. What? She questioned, observing the doctor grow agitated. As the doctor watched Tsunade's face paled and the other jonin fled the room quickly like Guy had, he explained, there is another reason why Danzo had to be bandaged up along the face like he is now. I didn't want to have to say this, but I must so we could better figure out who did this to him. You see, when we began to save him from near death, we noticed that his right and left eye had been gouged out, and to add more insult to injury, his jaw and tongue has also been ripped out as well. That's not possible, stammered Tsunade, her heart pounding more rapidly from the fear of what she was about to face in relation to Danzo's attack. It's Lady Hokage. I checked myself. Regretfully. Whoever did this to Danzo had his jaw broken in multiple places and his tongue torn out almost to its original location before removing it forcefully. Someone or something did this that, for all intents and purposes, wanted Danzo to feel one thing. Pain. And lots of it, the doctor said, realizing he would have to drown himself in sake to end this nightmare. Tsunade, meanwhile, could not think of a single word. The one word she has had so many nightmares time and time again about. Anguish. The man who had attacked her village years before had said to her, those haunting purple eyes never leaving her mind, you think you're the only ones who matter. You think you can put off death. But that peace made you foolish and thoughtless. If you kill someone, someone else will kill you. This hatred binds us together. Pain. Away from the hospital. After destroying Danzo Shimura, the cloaked figure peered down from the building across the street and saw Haruno and Uchiha heading for the prison while a man chewed a senbon outside the hospital. His head tilted to the right as he considered visiting the prison, but he decided against it because it wouldn't matter if he killed them right away. Either way, Konoha will burn. The man said, it's finally here. Konohagakure. Get ready to be painted red with blood. He then turned to face the fourth Hokage and smiled before vanishing from sight. Prison Konoha maximum security. Genma questioned, Sasuke and Sakura lowering their eyes at the mention of Danzo. What do you think could have done that to Danzo, though I'm not going to cry for him. After what he did to Naruto, I am kinda glad this happened. They said nothing more during their entire journey to the prison. Eventually, they entered the enormous stone complex and reached the second-floor entrance, which was guarded by 2 Anbu guards. Shizaki shuddered at the thought of what might be behind the pair of iron doors, and the Anbu on the left, wearing an owl mask, remarked, it's not a pretty sight in there. Had they peered beneath the Anbu's mask, they would have witnessed him straining to contain his gag reflex as he remembered being the first to see what was inside. With nods, the group went into the cell block on the second floor and discovered blood all over the place, on the walls, on the floor, everywhere. With a spiteful, holy shit. The 2 Anbu guards at the door nodded in agreement. The second Anbu shuddered and said, it gets worse when you reach the cell. Just then, 2 more shinobi came down the stairs. Kiba loudly exclaimed, we're here, as he walked up to the doors with his dog Akamaru and his sister Hana Inuzuka, who was accompanied by her 3 canine friends, the 3 Haimaru brothers. All 4 of the dogs whimpered in terror as soon as they entered the cell block and backed away from Danzo's cell. Kiba inquired, what's wrong, Akamaru? He was aware that the scene was unsettling, but he was concerned that it was making his partner and Hana's partners want to flee. Sasuke urged them on, come on, we need to see the cell. As they made their way down the catwalk, squishing their feet on the pools of blood that still hadn't dried on the chilly metal. As soon as they turned to the left, the 4 dogs, along with their friends, yelped in shock and terror at what they saw inside the cell. The entire cell was covered in blood from top to bottom, and the walls and floor were covered in claw and scorch marks. Everyone paled at the horrific sight, and Akamaru cried out and hid behind Kiba, his tail between his legs as his whole body shook with fear. Burned into the walls were the words, sinner, liar, and, most disturbing of all, revenge of a demon. With a bending over and a pat of her dogs, Hana Shizaki asked, something you wish to share? Akamaru claims that he can smell demonic chakra everywhere he goes. It smells like it. It's the same kind of chakra that was felt when Naruto. Hana said, causing everyone to flinch at the name because Tsunade is sensitive about it. Sakura questioned, are you sure? She didn't want to accept that this was actually happening. Kiba interrupted with a glare from his older, fellow shinobi, positive. It's faint but it's there, and it is the same as the chakra Naruto gets when he goes berserk, you don't think? Genma calmly said, we don't know. It's all speculation right now. Let's continue to gather what evidence we can and then report to Tsunade when the time is right. On the outside, his calm demeanor belied his inner, life, threatening fear. Hokage office. After 6 hours Tsunade fell back into her chair, exhausted from all the medical jutsu she had learned. She had even summoned Katsuyu in an attempt to do the best she could for Danzo, who was now a limbless lump of meat. She had a drinking problem and would often crack open a bottle while doing paperwork, hiding it behind one of the mounds stacked beside her desk when someone important would come in. She was so exhausted right now that she didn't even want to touch sake, which was unusual for her since she wouldn't admit it. She thought, maybe Kakashi was right in leaving. Maybe Konoha has lost my grandfather's will of fire. But no, Naruto was long gone, banished, and never to return. If he were here, she would give him this job right now in a heartbeat and get just leave. A voice said, Tsunade Senju. Tsunade spun around to see the masked man appear from the shadows and take a position in front of the desk, staring at the now standing Hokage. Akuma. How the hell did you get in here? Tsunade growled, praying that her body still contained enough chakra to fight. The man in the mask tapped his clawed finger on the desk and said, that is irrelevant. However, I am here for a simple reason, and that reason is that you have something I want. When Tsunade asked herself, where the hell were her guards? She became suspicious of the Akatsuki leader. Akuma said, showing a bloody hand stained with the fresh blood of her guards, if you are concerned about your Anbu guards outside the door, then I suggest you don't bother worrying about them since they are already dead, and focus on me. Tsunade yelled, you attacked Danzo. Akuma simply cocked his head to the side, as if he was curious if what she had said was true, and then cocked it back. The man threatened Tsunade, pointing one bloody finger at her throat, saying, the old sinner got what he deserved. He betrayed someone close to you. Do not pity him, do not defend him. Because if you do defend him, I will do what I did to him, to you. Tsunade spoke, hoping that the enigma would become afraid of being pursued by the other great shinobi villages and falter, giving her the opportunity she needed. Need I remind you that I am Hokage and to attack one will make you an enemy of the other hidden villages, she said. The exact opposite took place. With a pleased tone in his voice, Akuma said, nice bluff Tsunade, but it won't work. I've already annihilated Kirigakure, Takigakure, and Otogakure, and those that survived have already allied themselves with me. Tsunade stuttered, her heart starting to beat much faster from the memories of the different reports about those 3 villages being completely destroyed by one person. Wait. Iwa, Kumo, and Suna have allied with you. Then that means you are the... That's right, I am the yoke cage, Akuma corrected her, causing her eyes to enlarge at his self-ascribed title. Despite being a cage without a village, he was in charge of 3 different villages. The unshakable leader of the notorious criminal group Akatsuki, the man who murdered 200 root Anbu at the Shi facility, turning the place into a gory sight to behold. Tsunade demanded, what do you want? As Akuma continued to tap his finger on the desk while pondering. I want the key to the Namikaze estate, Akuma declared without hesitating. When it became apparent that she would not give it up voluntarily, Akuma lowered his hand and asked Tsunade, why do you want the key to the estate? To use the secrets stored there for the Akatsuki's goals? Akuma took a step forward, threatening to attack Tsunade, saying, no, simply because what's there is not yours to have. Tsunade questioned the man's ambitious plan and its connection to the Namikaze estate, saying, what are you talking about? The Namikaze estate belonged to the 4th Hokage and his wife. Yes, however, by birthright. The estate now belongs to their son. Akuma approached Tsunade and said, but he's not here, he was banished from the village by that fool Danzo, never to return. No, that person is still alive, Akuma uttered just before the mask began to change and absorb red chakra into his skin. Tsunade's heart began to race as soon as she saw Akuma's slashed Konoha headband, followed by the piercing red slit eyes and black sclera, the 3 thick, savage looking birthmarks on each cheek that resembled whiskers, and lastly the sharpened fangs in his mouth. Tsunade stammered, Naruto? As she saw the boy she had known standing in front of him now as the yoke cage and leader of Akatsuki. The warmth that had once been on his face had vanished with the wind and was replaced with rage and coldness. Still wanting the key to his father's estate, he extended his hand out to her. He bared his fangs and growled, frightening Tsunade with his animosity and his seemingly imminent death. That name is dead to me now, no longer am I Naruto, I'm embracing the name I gave myself to hide behind. I am Akuma Uzumaki now. Tsunade began, Naruto but was interrupted by a deep, guttural growl from Naruto's throat, his eyes blazing with utter hatred. Her eyes narrowed, Naruto declared, that's Akuma Uzumaki, you old hag. Now give me the key or I will kill you. There was no room for discussion. Tsunade looked at Naruto, or Akuma as he was now called, and thought, did he just threaten me? The Naruto I know doesn't threaten people and demand things from them. Is this the work of the Kyuubi? Remember that Akuma means demon in Japanese, so from now on we will all be referring to him as Akuma permanently. Akuma moved forward, putting himself in close proximity to Tsunade, and lowered his hand. Since you seem to be quite reluctant to give me the key back, I'm going to ask you a little question concerning my mother. What is it? Tsunade questioned, nearly trembling in his presence. With so much hatred in his eyes that Tsunade thought he was burning a hole through her very soul, Akuma questioned, why didn't you come back to the village when she was pregnant with me to save her from a possibility of dying at birth? Tsunade, hoping he would believe her, said, I didn't want to go back because of the bad memories I had of those I loved dying. Rather, his hand shot forward, encircling her throat and slamming her into the office wall, pinning her. You think I am a moronic retard? Are these the eyes of a retard to you? Yelled Akuma, his voice growing more and more demonic and lacking any humanity. Tsunade gasped in between breathless exhalations, what do you want me to say? As Akuma's hold tightened. Naruto narrowed his eyes and Tsunade's eyes widened in realization and shock. You don't remember? Perhaps I should just refresh your memory since the journal that my mother kept that was locked away in that desk of yours seems to have slipped your mind. About 6 months into my mother carrying me, the doctors ran some tests showing she was going to have severe complications when I was born, and were more than likely to be fatal if not treated by a top-notch doctor of your level. You were summoned by my father to arrive here in Konoha within a window of a few months to make sure that such birth-giving related problems didn't kill her. But according to her journal, you said no, and for what? All because you owed my mother a sum of $400 from an old gambling debt you made with her 2 years prior when she and my dad were still dating. $400. That was the price on my mother's life because you were thinking with your wallet and just couldn't stand the shame of being in Konoha to not only save my mother, but pay her back the money you owed her. You wretched old drunken bitch. To think I gave my life just so you could be Hokage, roared Naruto, his chakra now becoming more and more violent and swirling out from his body, his skin starting to peel away and reveal his version 2 state. He released 9 tails of chakra before slamming her into her desk and smashing the wooden object to pieces. Tsunade moaned, Naruto. I am sorry, I just before she felt his foot ram into her stomach and started to cough up blood. Akuma growled as he twisted his foot around over Tsunade's stomach, relishing the sound of her cracked ribs popping or snapping. Shut up, wrench. I'm through listening to you plea, moan, and beg for mercy. I'm here in Konoha to take what is mine. Money, scrolls, and anything else that was left to be by either side of my family. While you were out saving Danzo's remaining shred of a thing he calls a life, I was walking around this dump of a village I used to call home to take care of unfinished business, and I have a feeling it's going to go off, well, with a bang, smirked Naruto as he made a hand sign giggled. 3 seconds later, the village was rocked by a variety of explosions, followed by the cries of helpless bystanders who were caught in the larger explosions. Naruto, please don't do this, Tsunade pleaded, hoping that this was all just a bad dream. However, it was actually an unending nightmare. I told you, old hag, that name is dead to me and I'm taking back what was rightfully mine to begin with. About that Uchiha. I'm going to kill him, but not yet. I shall return in 2 days' time, and in that time you better prepare him for the fight of his life. I will not hold back, and once I slit his throat, he along with the rest of this worthless village will be slaughtered and killed like the animals you are. Said Akuma prior to leaning down and whispering in Tsunade's ears. I will kill every last person in this village, regardless if it is a man, woman, or child. You will all pay for your sins. With that, he got back up, straightened his mask, and left the room, Tsunade's sobbing having been soothing to him. Konoha streets people were screaming and shouting to one another that the village was being attacked, and the place was in complete chaos. He just strolled out the front gates carelessly, leaving the shinobi scratching their heads in confusion as they were so worked up that they chose to ignore him in the midst of the chaos he had caused. A storage of scrolls, sealed with blood so that only he could open it, hung from his waist. The scrolls contained everything, including the legacies of his family. He could hear the explosions going off one after another with every step he took, crossing off locations on the list of things that needed to be destroyed. The orphanage had been destroyed by explosion while its occupants remained inside. Stores that had turned him down or overcharged him were now on fire, and the numerous Konoha residences of those who had made his life difficult had also been lost. Verify, verify, verify. He turned to face the village again and grinned as he stared up at the Hokage monument, following Tsunade's head as the 5th Hokage all the way from the first Hokages. Kaijiten. Aku no kami no Akai Hashira no Sudareki, declared Akuma, raising his hand in the air and then quickly lowering it again. 4 red lightning bolts struck the Hokage monument, reducing everything to flaming debris with the exception of his father, the head of the 4th Hokage. Feeling content with his efforts, he pivoted and proceeded to leave the village. He had lost interest in people. With the exception of the jinchuriki and a few others who supported him, he detested them with a fierce hatred. He had previously used Taki, Otto, and Kiri as examples of how his thoughts functioned in relation to these matters. Just as he had promised Nagato all those years ago, he will bring about peace. But in order to achieve this, he has to give up some in order to save the majority. He was the one who brought both death and life. All bowed down to the second Kyuubi, Akuma Uzumaki, the leader of Akatsuki and Yokage of 3 villages. Tower of Hokage. 11 a.m. Lady Hokage, exclaimed 2 Anbu who were attempting to assist Tsunade in returning to the living world. Having attempted to contact her at the hospital first, they proceeded to the tower where they were alarmed to see that the guards were dead. After pushing back the Anbu and kneeling next to Tsunade, Yamato cried out, "Get back, she's in shock." He was completely taken aback by Tsunade's condition. "Yamato," she uttered haltingly as she looked up at him in fear. He knew right away that Tsunade had been psychologically as well as physically impacted by whatever she had experienced. Holding Tsunade up to her feet to keep her steady, Yamato said, "Tsunade, calm down, everything is going to be alright." Tsunade said, shocking the Anbu and Yamato, "I betrayed him, Yamato. We all betrayed him and he hates us for it." Her eyes were now filled with more tears of fear and sorrow. Yamato asked, Who did this to you, Tsunade?" With a worried and increasingly irate expression. Tsunade and the Anbu understood that he meant, "Who broke your spirit?" Naruto. It was Naruto, Tsunade sobbed as she stammered. "He's the one who's planned this all, ever since day one. He's the Yokage and he's Akuma, the Akatsuki leader." Again, she started to cry quietly, and Yamato's mouth opened in dismay. Yamato said, "Naruto. That's impossible." Tsunade disagreed, shaking her head. She swallowed to try to make the bitter taste in her mouth go away before saying, "No, it isn't. It's all true. Find him." Hoping Yamato understood what she meant, she uttered, "Find him, Yamato. Find him and stop him. You're the only one who can." Yamato replied, "I understand." He wished Kakashi could have helped him, but that wish was unfulfilled. He had vanished. He has to bear this burden by himself and put an end to the once kind boy who has turned evil. Unknown place. A man strolled along a path through the mountain's graveyard, passing by the abandoned bones of ancient giants that once roamed the planet before humans arrived. His features were hidden by a large black cloak and hood. A massive katana with a blood red and black sheath and a single red diamond set into the visible hilt was slung over his back. As he approached a small, deserted outpost near the coast, he sneered as he crossed a tiny bridge. The man said, his sword humming and glowing a dark red color, "Well, it seems it's starting. Time to end this little charade. This world needs to end. Jubi," as a deep voice emerged from the blade. The swordman said, "Yes. That stupid piece that Rakudo envisioned through love will never come to fruition." Red eyes peered out from under his hood, and his sneer turned into an evil smile. "Yes. With these eyes of mine, everyone will bow down to me." 12 p.m. A megacure with the Akatsuki members assembled in front of him and staring at him with the deepest seriousness in their eyes. Akuma sat at his desk. He pulled out a box and placed it on the desk, saying, "I have summoned you here to tell you that the time we've been waiting for has arrived. We shall destroy Konoha the day after tomorrow, and by night the fires of its end will cover the skies." Glancing over the box with his bloodshot eyes, Kakashi noticed something strange. Something inside the box seemed to be radiating the same chakra that was inside Naruto, or Akuma as he was now known. 10 rings that resembled the rings Konan and the original Akatsuki members owned were visible when Akuma opened the box. "I have crafted 8 new rings and have modified your ring Konan to possess a store of my chakra. Whenever I am near any of you, it will always stay charged with it, Ketsueki," Yahiko and Kurama's of course is not like this because he is already a Biju and you two are jinchuriki, so you have no such need for this. Naruto said as he took out his ring, 0, and placed it on his right thumb. He knew what she had to prove already, so he pulled out Konan's ring, white, and gave it to her. The instant she put the ring on, a seal bearing the black kanji for fox materialized on her right hand. Akuma asked, as you can see, a seal forms when you slip the ring on, and with it, you can perform this. Can you please demonstrate for us? Konan stepped back and formed a single seal as everyone looked at her. Her body suddenly burst into a demon-filled explosion of chakra, and she materialized into the four-tailed version 2 form of a jinchuriki, despite not actually being one. Now she's curiosity about what Naruto had done with the rings grew as his eyes grew larger. Before giving the rings to the members, Akuma warned, as you can all see, Konan was able to enter version 2 state through the use of my chakra stored in the ring. Each transformations though only lasts 5 minutes, so use it wisely. Kurama was given a dark maroon ring with the kanji for demon on it, which he placed on his left thumb. A dark green ring bearing the kanji for thorn was given to Naoshi. A light blue ring bearing the kanji for fang was given to Kakashi. A purple ring bearing the kanji for Asura was given to Akayuri. A black ring bearing the kanji for blaze was given to Suzaku. A blue-colored ring bearing the kanji for monster was given to Senkuku. A red ring bearing the kanji for blood was given to Ketsueki. And Yahiko was given a teal-colored ring bearing the kanji for gem. We're going to wait until tomorrow morning before leaving. I'm going to write a little letter to a friend first, though. Hospital Konoha. 12:50 p.m. Do you really want me to carry out this task? Inoichi said. I may not survive if I enter his mind and see what he went through, as he looked back over his shoulder at Tsunade, who was standing over him with her arms crossed and I don't give a damn look on her face. You must take this action if you want us to get answers. Do it now, don't delay, exclaimed Tsunade, almost causing the man to fumble with his hand signals and mispronounce his clan's jutsu in the second sentence. If I may ask Tsunade, what led Naruto to ask Shizune, but Tsunade cut her off with a death glare that she had never given her in their entire relationship, which terrified the hell out of her. Never, ever call me Shizune by his name. That name means nothing to me anymore, in my opinion. The Kyuubi inside of him has corrupted everything that he once was. Recognize, inquiring. Tsunade caused Shizune to shudder in front of her instructor. Shizune stuttered, hoping the woman had not become so deeply depressed and enraged. Why? Yes, Lady Hokage. Following the events, the official damage report was devastating, and it wasn't just about the physical damage that befell the village. The forbidden scroll of seals was taken out of the vault hidden underneath the cage tower. The Namikaze estate was emptied of everything it held, and the bank accounts of the Namikaze and Uzumaki were completely empty. The casualties, both civilian and shinobi, were immense, with homes lost and the people inside either missing or their bodies never found and returned to their families, if they had survived, and the Hokage monument completely destroyed. It's odd that only the head of the 4th Hokage survived. Iruka entered the room, saying, Lady Hokage, I have Kurenai Yuhi and her team with her, and they wish to know their assignment. He had just left the academy, or what was left of it, after an explosion that killed 2 instructors and injured a class of genin destroyed half of the structure. Actually, he was relieved that Konohamaru and his comrades under the guidance of Ebisu, their sensei, were off on a C-rank mission to escort a man to one of the main ports in the Fire Country. With her eyes fixed on the form of Danzo Shimura, who was still screaming in muffled pain despite being mentally invaded by Inoichi, and no amount of morphine or painkillers he had taken seemed to be helping, Tsunade said, send them in. Lady Hokage, you called for us. When Kurenai, Kiba, Shino, and Hinata entered the room, they all knew that something had to be significant and that it involved the one person that nobody dared to mention, asked Kurenai. Yamato told me he needs more confirmation, but he believes he has located the Kyuubi. Tsunade looked back at Kurenai and her team, seeing their eyes widen and nod in agreement. Right now, you are all I really can spare since the village needs to recover, and I need someone to back up Yamato, she said. Knowing he was walking on thin ice regarding his former teammate, Shino said, you need us to distract the Kyuubi so Yamato can put an effective end to him with his wood release and finish him off, now that he possesses a mortal body. He knew he was safe because he didn't mention the man's name, and he hoped the others would follow suit. Indeed. We don't have the funds to complete this SS ranked mission, but I'll do everything in my power to compensate you later on and provide you with additional support as it becomes available. Tsunade said, I sent a request for help to Suna, but Gaara turned it down saying he will do nothing to help Konoha, knowing that Suna had already sworn allegiance to him and Akatsuki, just as Kumo had. Konoha had no allies and was entirely by themselves. Naruto, are you still the same person you were before the demon you hold destroyed your spirit? Hinata hoped that the man she had loved and admired for so long would remain in that condition. We're going to be leaving right away, Lady Hokage, Kurenai said, bending slightly. Before leaving to aid Yamato, her team would require almost every piece of shinobi equipment they could lay their hands on. That is, if they could assist. The thought of Danzo. Danzo banished Naruto after he had fought for every inch of his life and saved the village, which sickened Inoichi. No wonder the demon possessed the boy and took his revenge on the man before attacking the village that had shunned its jinchuriki. Inoichi wished he could leave Danzo's mind right now so he could throw up his guts before killing the man for what he had done to Naruto. Danzo was an elder and member of the Konoha Council who had repeatedly set up Naruto and coordinated attacks on the boy. Danzo was able to carry out all of this work from the shadows, and when he was eventually apprehended, his position in the Konoha Council gave him invincibility. As Inoichi entered the man's memory of the prison, walking down the winding catwalks towards his cell, the sight of the attack, he thought, I don't know whether to be glad or frightened by what I'm about to see. When he finally reached his cell, it was quite a sight. You have no right to identify as a village elder and declare that what you are doing is in the best interests of the community. Naruto remarked, you are nothing but a tiny insect that needs to know its place in the world. Under the heel of my boot, to a restrained Danzo who was suspended in midair and unable to move because the spiked chains were broken in all directions and encircled his body and neck. You don't deserve to even contain that. Demon Kyuubi, Naruto growled, slashing Danzo's face with his claws, severing a deep gash in his right cheek. Danzo, allow me to share some information with you. The Kyuubi has a name. I call him Kurama, and he's the closest friend I have. Secondly, his presence has left me. It's unnecessary to have a Biju sealed inside another Biju, growled Naruto, causing Danzo to raise an eyebrow in perplexity while blood spurted from his cut cheek and lip. Danzo's eyes widened as Naruto declared, I have become something beyond you pathetic humans. I have joined the ranks of Biju as the second Kyuubi. It's not possible. Oh, that's totally conceivable. Do you not want to investigate further? Naruto grinned as his skin separated from his face, glad that Inoichi was spared the sight of Danzo's screamed image. Are you surprised, Danzo? Look me in the eye and acknowledge the person I've grown into. This whole thing started because of you. After Pain's invasion, I bet you're wishing you hadn't said those words, don't you? Naruto remarked, circumnavigating Danzo's body while his crimson eyes searched every part of him and his teeth were picking at his claws. Danzo, it's time you paid off your debts. With all the suffering I can extract from your meaningless existence, I will force you to repay them in full. Greetings from hell. Naruto laughed, swung his clawed hand back, and started to methodically obliterate Danzo's existence. Inoichi watched in dismay as Naruto, the Kyuubi, or whatever he had become, was brutally dismembering Danzo's body and destroying it without asking any questions. Danzo screamed for hours on end, but no one could hear because the prison's soundproof walls kept the torture from being discovered. After gouging out both of Danzo's eyes and removing his jaw and tongue, Naruto finally stopped. Well, it's not like Danzo had it coming, Inoichi thought. Before speaking again, he paused and let his arms hang by his sides, leaving only Danzo's groaning as the only sound in the cell. Inoichi, please deliver this message to Danzo. I know the old hag sent you in here to enter his mind. Inform her of my accomplishments thus far and that Konoha's ordeal pales in comparison to what lies ahead. This is nothing, Naruto uttered before turning to face Inoichi, giving the man the impression that he could see him and recognize him by the glare in his blood-red eyes. Naruto started, tell her, before slamming his hand into the wall next to Inoichi, making the man jump. Even though Inoichi wasn't there at the moment, Naruto whispered into his ear, tell her that I know she will send Yamato after me, and that the next time she sees him will be in a box, filled with the rotten flesh-covered remains of his skull. Inoichi, panting for breath and drenched in perspiration, stopped the jutsu, feeling anxious and a little afraid. How severe was it? As Tsunade saw the man's terrified gaze on her, she questioned. It's worse than you think. He knows you would send Yamato after him and plans to kill him, Inoichi uttered, his voice trembling violently in those crimson, rage-filled eyes tormenting his thoughts. What inquiries did Danzo receive from the Kyuubi? Tsunade questioned, speculating as to why the Biju would want the Warhawk other than to harm him. Tsunade, there were no queries. Inoichi spoke Naruto's name in front of Tsunade, not realizing until much later that Naruto had torn him apart for no apparent reason. Her hand was quickly firmly around his throat, and his body was thrown against the adjacent wall. Never again call that thing by the name of Naruto in front of me. Can you comprehend what I'm saying? Tsunade yelled, her rage evident in her eyes, leading Inoichi to believe she was going to murder him. You don't comprehend, Tsunade. And Naruto was the one. I'm being honest with you. I promise, trying to breathe, but finding it impossible, Inoichi stammered. You tell lies. With her eyes darting dangerously at him, Tsunade growled. I desire to be. He claimed to have turned into the second Kyuubi, a Biju, and was preparing to massacre every resident of the village. Neither you nor anyone else in the village are important to him. He simply desires to murder us all and witness our agony at his feet, Inichi uttered, holding out hope that the woman would give up on severing his windpipe. She actually made him fear for his life for a good 5 seconds as she squeezed his throat more tightly, but then she sighed and let Inoichi fall to the ground, where she collapsed into a nearby chair, gasping for air. Did Danzo truly deserve to be hurt? Tsunade questioned as she cast a sidelong glance at Inoichi, who was massaging his sore throat. Inoichi coughed as he stood up from the ground, stumbling a little before gaining stability. If you saw what I did, Tsunade, you would stop giving him painkillers and simply kill him yourself. When Tsunade finished her sentence, her voice sounded almost broken. I'll take your word for it. Tsunade, the two councils and the clan heads will want to meet to discuss this matter, Inoichi remarked, although not many of them are still alive after what happened today. Such a meeting had not yet occurred, and with everything that had happened, including rumors that Naruto had reincarnated as a demon, it would be challenging to get any composed members to speak at such a meeting. Though Tsunade had to bite her tongue afterward, having herself been such a fool for not returning to Konoha to save Kushina when she needed her, and all for a meager sum of money, she sighed. Those arrogant fools are the reason why the fourth Hokage's dying wish wasn't honored in the first place. You betrayed the old drunken brat. The echoing voice of Naruto's demonic-filled words, which pierced straight through her soul, screamed inside her mind. Tsunade. Tsunade. How are you doing? You simply lost focus for a brief moment, Inoichi remarked, observing the woman appear to be mentally reliving a memory. Yes, everything is well with me. Inform the clan heads and councils that they will be meeting later today. As it is, it's long overdue, Tsunade remarked, hoping that things wouldn't get out of control. Except for the fire daimyo, who they simply sucked up to when he paid them a visit, those who despised Naruto felt no need to be humbled by anyone. A Megacure's outskirts at 1:55 p.m. Suzaku called out to Akuma, he's almost here. Akuma nodded, sensing through the rain tiger at will technique he had learned from Conan that Yamato's chakra was moving in their direction. To ensure that it wouldn't disrupt their business, he had put an end to the rain. The second person Akuma selected to stand by his side, Akuyuri, warned Kakashi, just try to be a little careful, he does possess the wood release. When he confronted Yamato. Yes, but you have far more control over it than Yamato does, and you do it too. As Akuma saw Yamato approach them from behind the hill, he grinned behind his mask and said, Akuyuri, Kakashi, and Suzaku, please stay back. It's a pleasure, Yamato. Why have you come to Rain Country? With his arms crossed and Yamato's serious expression never taking off, Akuma asked. Under that mask, isn't that the Kyuubi? Naruto, it's really you, exclaimed Yamato. Akuma laughed and absorbed his mask, staring at Yamato with his crimson eyes. I have lost all meaning in that name. I'll explain that to you in the same manner that I did Tsunade. I no longer contain Kurama, the Kyuubi, for your information. I genuinely am the second Kyuubi, Akuma declared, causing Yamato's scowl to change into 9 flowing chakra tails that emerged from him and swung behind him. As he assumed his stance, Yamato remarked, well, I bet you know what happens now. Akuma growled at Yamato while cracking his knuckles and dropping to all fours. Akuma teased Yamato by using the emphatic sensei title. "I'm going to enjoy this. Yamato, sensei." He intended to ensure that the man in front of him would be in agony. An enormous amount of pain. "I'm going to love hurting you and I will do it." As he charged towards Yamato, his version 1 one-tailed form began to bubble over him. Akuma laughed. After blocking his initial swipe, Yamato began to be pushed back with each fierce attack, beginning to wonder if he would survive this day. A quick kick to the side suddenly threw him to the side, breaking several of his ribs in the process. Hanryu. Sweden. A torrent of water arched around and smashed into Akuma's crossed arms, groused Yamato as he swung his hand around. Yahiko fell across the ground and struggled to stand up, holding his torn up shoulder until the pain was quickly relieved by adrenaline. "Pathetic, you are fully aware that my senses surpass yours, humans." "I anticipated that," scoffed Naruto, just before Yamato materialized in the background and created the sit seal on his hand. "It seems that you too have inherited the haughtiness of the Kyuubi. Kakuon Nitten Suishu. Hokage. Shikiji Junjutsu." After assembling a string of 7 hand signals, Yamato spoke as 10 wooden pillars with black spikes sticking out of them rose up from the ground and encircled him. Akuma's chakra was being drawn out by a tendril of blue chakra that was attached to his chest, and Yamato created a wood clone that began to make hand signs and exclaimed, "Mokuton. Fu Inu Hedo." With a slam of his palms, he unleashed a barrage of 8 wooden totems resembling fu dog faces that circled him and began sucking out his chakra by snapping their jaws on his arms, legs, and body. "Oh no. I ought to have kept in mind that he is capable of using those methods, only, he ought to understand that he is unable to hold me." Akuma grinned and clenched his fists as before. Akuma started growling, his chakra growing more and more volatile as tiny cracks started to show up on the pillars and fu dog heads. "Haughtiness? Yamato, it's you who has the haughtiness. You may believe you can control me, but I'm no longer a jinchuriki. I'm in complete command." Akuma roared as he broke free from the techniques, transforming into his 5-tailed version 2 form and fracturing the columns and fu dog heads with an explosion of chakra. "We shall investigate that. Even though I'm not as strong as you, I can slow you down for a long enough period of time so Tsunade can prepare a counterattack. That's what counts," Yamato remarked, understanding that even if he were to fail in killing the 4th Hokage's son, he could at least inflict some sort of wound. "Do you really think I'll be delayed by this? When you found out where I was, I've been waiting for you to come here for a while. It was my design that brought you here. I wanted you to be here. I have everything organized so that each and every item on my schedule fits in as it should. I am aware that Tsunade, along with the remaining bigots on the council, is going to start organizing an event. This event will undoubtedly involve the Fire Daimyo's involvement, as he is curious about the village he funds. Coincidentally, I sent him a comprehensive message about my actions in Konoha, which he can utilize against the jerks there when he gets there." Akuma grinned, catching Yamato off guard by rearing his arm back, creating a crimson Rasengan, and striking Yamato in the shoulder, causing the man to fly back into a stand of trees, uprooting a few as he made contact with them. When Akuma suddenly materialized on top of him, Yamato rolled to the side, got to his feet, and began stringing more signs together before exclaiming, "Doden. Doryukatsu." A huge chasm opened up beneath Akuma, sending him plummeting miles into the earth, and his eyes widened. "Well done." Akuma screamed as he rammed his arms and legs into the chasm's walls, sliding to a halt and then propelling himself out of it, landing behind Yamato and grinning. "But insufficiently good. Ryuho. Akai Akuma Ryujiten." Crying out, Naruto shot his hand forward, his chakra condensing into a fiery red dragon that struck Yamato in the back, scorching part of his flak jacket and causing his skin to bubble. He moaned in agony as he was flung forward, steam shooting from his injured back. "That hurt like crazy." As I stood up and pulled off my ruined flak jacket and the top of my shirt, exposing my muscles and a variety of old battle scars from my time as an ANBU, Yamato thought to himself. Akuma said, "You know Yamato, I never yet wondered what your real name was, and how you were as an Anbu," as his 6th tail began to form and his body began to take on the appearance of chakra bone armor. Suzaku exhaled another cloud of smoke and grinned, "Wow, the kid's pulling out all the stops." Akayuri grinned in amusement. "Well, it appears that we are intensifying. That is something I can agree with. Mokuton. Jutsu no Daijirin. As he threw out his arm, Yamato's right arm transformed into a massive branch. Giant roots shot outward toward Akuma, causing him to jump back as they raced toward him and beneath the earth, lacing at him from every side. Each branch's ends were honed to a deadly point, with one of them severing Akuma's arm through his chakra. Wow, this is really starting to get fun. Jumped to a halt, then he held his head up, negative yin chakra and positive yang chakra beginning to form around him into a Biju Dama. Laughed Naruto as he blasted a wave of chakra out, frying the roots to cinders and ending Yamato's jutsu. Ashish. T. Mokuton. Heki Jukai. As he made the appropriate hand gestures and slammed his palms to the ground, enormous wooden branches burst forth from the ground in front of Yamato, interlocking to form a massive wall. Dama Biju. As he launched the weakened Biju Dama at Yamato's defensive wall, the wall seemed to be winning the showdown as the attack crashed into it and ground against its surface. Akuma yelled. "You'll need to perform better than that," as he leapt forward and struck the Biju Dama with his fist, shattering through the barrier of branches and directly striking Yamato. Akuma yelled. Tanaru no Jutsu. Doden. With a swift motion, Yamato spoke, and a hole appeared in the ground directly beneath him, enabling him to avoid Akuma and the Biju Dama as they crashed into the earth behind the opening. "You sneaky bastard!" exclaimed Akuma as he looked around to find his opponent. Abruptly, two hands materialized behind him, forming a single seal, from which some wood sprouted, eventually taking the shape of a human. "I'm right here, Naruto." Akuma whirled around, staring narrowly at Yamato as he stood up and raised a sword. "Although I'm really enjoying this fight, I have stuff to do," Akuma uttered as a mass of maroon colored chains suddenly emerged from the earth, entangling Yamato and holding him motionless. As Akuma walked up to Yamato, who was frantically scanning his surroundings, he said, "Yamato, you were brave for coming here, I'll give you that. But it was foolish. Goodbye, Yamato. It was nice to meet you." As he shaped his shakuho and drove its sharpened tip through Yamato's throat, blood spurting from the stab, Akuma laughed. A voice cried out, "Mokuton. Mokusatsu Shibari no Jutsu." As Akuma's eyes widened and Yamato abruptly turned brown and turned into wood. Akuma's arms and legs were encircled by a flurry of tree branches as the wood clone burst into action. Just behind the clone, Yamato shot up from the earth, sending Akuma flying back into some mud with a fist to his jaw. "That will cost you money." Growling, Naruto felt a surge of chakra beneath him. "Unlikely. Mokuton. Jubaku Iso," uttered Yamato. Akuma felt the ground tremble beneath him as wood roots emerged and began to envelop him in a burgeoning tree, with leaves emerging from the limbs. "How did you manage?" Yamato stood in front of Akuma, who was beginning to feel like his body was being crushed. "You needed to," he muttered. Yamato said, holding the sword firmly, "When I hit you with that Suiden jutsu, it got the ground wet underneath you, and then with my great forest technique, it dug up the ground with the water, allowing me to use this jutsu." It's no surprise that he was an Anbu. He meticulously planned that out. With a sly grin, Akuma said, "Wise thinking, Yamato," and then clenched his fists and directed his chakra into the tree. When he punched Yamato in the gut, he flew back and snapped in half another tree. He had broken free of the wood. As Akuma spoke, several chains shot out of the earth and encircled Yamato's wrists and ankles, saying, "Kaijiten. Akuma Gomen no Bando." When Akuma extended his hand to the left, the earth split open. "Kaijiten. Akuma no Jujika," exclaimed Akuma as the enormous metal cross emerged from the earth, ready to embrace its occupant. With the help of the chains, Akuma swung the weaker Yamato around and slammed him into the cross, the chains encircling the metal and pinning him there. Spikes emerged from the chains and went through Yamato's skin, causing him to bleed and groan in agony. A spike went through each of his hands and feet, causing him even more agony, Akuma taking pleasure in his suffering. "It's time to bring Yamato home." "Kachiyose no Jutsu," Akuma exclaimed as 3 puffs of smoke surrounded him and 3 foxes, each with 3 tails, stood next to him, resembling little Kuramas. Smirking, Akuma said, "Take him back to Konohagakure and put him on display." The foxes took hold of the cross and left with the unconscious Yamato. Akayuri hugged him, Kakashi nodded, and Suzaku grinned and patted Akuma on the back, saying, "Wow. You kicked his ass." Akuma halted them and turned his head back, a smile spreading across his face as they started to return to Omegakure. He said, "We have more visitors," turning his back on the others as Kurenai, Shino, Hinata, and Kiba ran toward them and Akamaru sniffed the air. "Yamato is where?" "Kyuubi, respond to me," Kurenai demanded, and Suzaku formed fire blades around his arms and ducked down, ready to strike, while Kakashi leapt forward and took hold of a kunai, his Sharingan changing into his Mangekyo Sharingan. "Suzaku, Kakashi, stand down. This is just something I have to clarify. Again," declared Akuma, turning to sneer at Kurenai, Hinata, and Kiba's horrified looks. "Whoa, Inoichi was correct. It's you, Naruto," Kurenai uttered as Akuma gave her a fang-adorned smile. Akuma bowed and said, "Kurenai, Kiba and your faithful companion Akamaru, Shino and Hinata, nice to see you." Just as he was about to release his chakra and transform back into his 9 tails, something he liked to do now, he began to leak out chakra. Regarding Yamato, he is currently en route to Konoha. "You can meet him there if you hurry," smirked Akuma, frightening Kurenai with his smile. "Sensei, I believe we ought to tactically withdraw. We might not have a chance if he beat Yamato," Shino remarked, and Kurenai retreated a little after snarling a little. They withdrew from the devastated terrain, leaving Akuma, Kakashi, and Suzaku by themselves. As he and the other 2 members started to head back towards the village, Akuma gave the order, "Come on, preparations must be completed."
That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this great story. See you in the next one.